Shocking new testimony from Hunter Biden's partner, Devon Archer. Yo, get this. We all saw the video of Joe Biden saying, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting $1 billion. And what we heard over and over again from liberals was that, but this was the policy of the United States. We now know, thanks to Devon Archer, that Hunter Biden and executives from Burisma called D.C. to get this prosecutor fired because they were investigating their company. So there it is, laid out for you. Devon Archer also testified that Joe Biden was on the phone with Hunter and his business associates. CNN, of course, is trying to defend this, saying it was just the illusion of access, despite the fact 10% was reserved for the big guy. That's the biggest news today, but we also have a lot of other crazy story, which is probably very big as well. Moscow hit by drone strikes. The photos and videos are shocking. And now you've got Oliver Stone saying he regrets voting for Biden because Biden may be starting World War III. And then on top of that, I'm throwing this in for good measure. There's a ridiculous article about a UFO nearly starting World War III by taking control of missiles. But you know how much we love our stupid distractions. And then we've got the story of a journalist who was in Ukraine, was arrested, and just recently got out and is on the run in a long Twitter thread describing how he was tortured. This is a crazy story. We're going to have to get into all of these details, my friends. But before we do, of course, head over to castbrew.com and buy our coffee. We sponsor ourselves. Cast Brew is our coffee brand, and we are launching our coffee shop. Hopefully, it'll be open in a few months. You can pick up all of our new blends like Mr. Bocus Pumpkin Spice Experience, Sleepy Joe Decaf. We also have, unfortunately, Stand Your Ground is still sold out. We were able to get the pumpkin spice back in stock, but the Stand Your Ground's medium roast sold like hotcakes, I suppose. But we've got a bunch of different blends. When you buy Cast Brew coffee at castbrew.com, you're supporting our show and you're supporting us. We basically get rid of all the external sponsors for a variety of reasons. But also don't forget to go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because we're going to have a members only uncensored show coming up for you at 10 p.m. where you as members can call into the show and ask us and our guests questions. And it's also just not so family friendly, can be a little bit spicy. So you don't want to miss those. They're good fun. Smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Liam Cosgrove.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm excited to be on, longtime listener. So if you probably don't know me because I don't have a huge following, but I go to the State Department, I go to the Pentagon, I'm a reporter for the Gray Zone, and I ask them questions, and I, try to do the job of a journalist, which is hold the powerful accountable. And, not many people in those briefing rooms seem to be doing that, but thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Right on. We also got Phil Labonte.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary.
I'm Ian Crossland. What's happening, everybody? I just drank a 1,300 calorie shake in 15 minutes. That was pretty intense. Never did that before. Building that muscle. I gained 12 pounds in the last 2 weeks.
Hell yeah.
I think 10 of them are permanent. The other 2 might be water weight. We'll find out. I weigh 142 for the show.
None of them are permanent.
Just keep it up.
You got to keep eating.
You said you gained 12 pounds and you weigh 142.
I started at 129. I'm 142 right now.
Wow.
129.
I actually started at 127 because I'd cut weight for the music video for the scene where I'm really emaciated. So I went from 127 to 143.
Good job.
Right now. Thanks,
It's going to be like
Is
5
that-
more weeks and Ian's going to be jacked.
That's the plan.
You might want to slow down, though, because 12 in 1 week?
Yeah, it was 5 pounds on Friday night and then 5 pounds on Saturday. Because I didn't.
Jesus.
I
Yeah,
ate
dude, I
3
would
days
take a
worth of
break.
food.
Yeah,
in
but that's
2
probably
days.
just you put food in your stomach and then weighed yourself.
Okay.
What happened was I worked
Yeah.
out all week, but I didn't. And I ate 1,800 calories, and then on the weekend I just loaded calories.
What you
ate
wanted?
3 times as much as normal, and then I put on 10.
Is that
pounds.
good? Like, you felt fine?
Yeah, I felt pretty good.
You should
Okay.
weigh yourself at the same time every day, like in the morning,
Yeah.
like after you go to the bathroom, so that way you're kind of in the same state, empty, as empty of a stomach as you can get, and do that for a week or two, and then you get a really good idea of how much you actually weigh, as opposed to varying because of water.
I got a smartwatch you should use.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's over there. It's then you can track your health and fitness stuff.
Okay.
It'll show you your heart rate and everything. You can monitor it. We'll get it after the show.
Okay,
I don't
cool.
know. Just realized right now. But
Great
we also
stuff.
got Serge here.
Yeah.
Press the button.
Yeah, how much creatine you taking, man? Because that'll be about how much
About
water
10
weight.
milligrams a day.
Okay. Well, no, it's not a ton, but
Yeah, it's like two segments of 5 milligrams. I think that's the dose right now.
Okay.
You taking the testosterone like RFK?
No, I have not, and that's interesting. I don't know if
He's
I'm
not
going to go
that
that
deep,
far.
Yeah. It's all good, man. You're looking good.
Is he not?
Look
Is he
healthy,
not on testosterone? Am I off there?
He is definitely on
I thought.
testosterone.
RFK? I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I'm nervous about
I
getting
thought I heard him
started
say
on
that in an
testosterone
interview.
because I've heard that once you start down, you've got to keep doing it. If you stop, that it can mess you up. So I don't want to start on something that I can't stop.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to stop making
true.
testosterone eventually anyways.
Yeah, but what you do is my understanding, and always talk to your doctor because I'm not a nutritionist, but more fat in your diet, and then they have natural supplements that there are things you can get that aren't testosterone, but it's what
help
your
you
body needs to
right.
make testosterone.
Make more of it.
That's pretty cool.
Like eating eggs and stuff. Anyways, I'm Serge.com, by the way. Yeah, let's get to
And
it. Tim.
that wraps up the Ian Health and Fitness Show. Let's jump to the news. We got this one from Fox News, ladies and gentlemen. This is probably the biggest bombshell out of the Devon Archer testimony. I mean, that's actually hard to say because we know that in this testimony we learned Joe Biden was on the phone 20 plus times in these business meetings while VP. But this one is shocking. Devon Archer says Hunter Biden and Burisma execs called D.C. to get Ukrainian prosecutor fired. Devon Archer testified for hours. Devon Archer testified Monday that Hunter Biden and top execs called D.C. in 2015 to ask the Obama administration to help fire the Ukrainian prosecutor investigating the firm. A source familiar with his testimony told Fox News Digital. And they lied. But ladies and gentlemen, we got Joe Biden right here admitting to all of it.
Happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones, so I got Ukraine, and I remember going over convincing our team or others to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for I guess the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion.
Jesus.
I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired.
And there it is right there. Shout out to DC Drano for that video, which has been circulating some time. He reposted it today. So that argument we heard over and over again from liberals that it was just U.S. policy to fire that prosecutor. Now, I got to say, that was never backed up by anything. Why did the U.S. want the prosecutor fired?
So I argued about this like years ago, whenever this came out, with a kind of a mainstream liberal friend of mine. And he said what you just said. He was like, the entire, like everyone in like the U.S. establishment agreed that this guy had to go. And this kind of debunks that. It's saying Burisma gave him a call and said, no. So the impetus came from Burisma.
But this makes sense. If you look at Burisma as an arm of U.S. interests, Burisma acting as U.S. policy interests called D.C. and says, if you want us to keep operating, this guy's got to go because he's investigating us. So simply put, you could say it was U.S. policy. There was a former CIA director on the board of Burisma, as well as the vice president's son. So of course it was our policy. We were running the show. But when you get to the brass tacks of it, corrupt institutions which were enriching people's private interests called up their buddies in D.C. or their dad and said, this guy is getting in the way to 10% for the big guy. So we've got Tony Bobulinski. This is one of the Hunter Biden associates saying outright he's in on it. You've got the emails, 10% held by what does it say, HB for the big guy? Is that what it said?
Was that Burisma, though, or is that the China thing?
10% for the big guy, I think, was a China deal. My point specifically, though, is we can see in these business dealings, there is evidence that Joe Biden is personally benefiting. We also have the text from Hunter Biden where he said something to the effect of dad taking his salary or things like that.
Right.
So he's acting as a proxy for Joe Biden while Joe Biden was in government. Joe Biden personally goes and gets the prosecutor fired who was investigating the company where his son was getting $83,000 a month. There it is. Devon Archer testified before Congress.
And the huge thing, so but also real quick, like if you just watch that clip and just like listen to Joe Biden's tone in that clip, like it's like he's just like acting like he's like talking to like his nephew. He's just like I don't know, he's so brazenly bragging. He's like I got to leave in about 6 minutes, I got a flight to catch. Why don't you fire that guy? he sounds like a mafia guy who's like proud of like.
That's probably
It really does sound like a line written for like a
mafia movie.
Yeah,
he's
right?
like he's
That's-
like.
Listen, Joe, if you don't fight a guy in 6 minutes,
He's like, yeah, he's
you
like
ain't getting
talking,
the money.
yeah, he's like talking shit just publicly
That speaks
about
to
what
the way
Trump
that-
was impeached over.
That speaks to the way that politics in Washington D.C. is handled generally, though. I mean, or I would believe that would lead me to believe because he
doesn't think it's a big deal.
Exactly, it's no problem. It's very normal for him. It comes off as obviously this is the case.
Yeah.
This wasn't the first time that he behaved like that or whatever. So I mean, it does speak to the tenor and the way business is done, not just with Washington, but obviously internationally as well. And the U.S., if the U.S. has one of the less corrupt governments on earth, which I don't know for sure if it does or not, but I know there are places that are a real mess. But if the U.S. does have a less corrupt government, and that's the way that business is handled among, someone that was the vice president who'd been in D.C. for 45 years at that point or whatever, then that
Just imagine the rest of the world.
Yeah, the rest of the world's a mess, and Ukraine is a absolute pigsty because everyone knows that Ukraine everyone is aware of the story or narrative that Ukraine is one of the most corrupt governments in the world.
100%. And I don't know, but I would assume Russia is too. But like, that's why it's so crazy that like we're involved in this war in the first place because we're talking about two very corrupt, very authoritarian, which we can get into like pre-war Zelensky's authoritarian tendencies, but like why the U.S. seems to think it needs to have a dog in this fight of like, why do we care which corrupt oligarch rules over Crimea or the Donbass? It's like, we shouldn't really care. They're both like horribly corrupt countries to begin with. But what's interesting from this stuff, and then there was Chuck Grassley on the Senate floor the other day who talked about one of these, I think Burisma associates or one of Hunter Biden's associates in Ukraine had recorded 19 phone calls, 17 with Hunter Biden, 2 with Joe Biden, for the purpose of blackmail. This was Chuck Grassley saying this. I don't know if he produced any like documentation for it, but so and why that's scary is like, could our president be blackmailed into supporting this war?
Yes.
And the idea and World War III is a real risk from this war. So like the implications of like, I mean,
Russia is not viewing this as Russia versus Ukraine. Their pundits, all their personalities are saying NATO versus Russia. So they're very much viewing this as international conflict. And it's only the most naive or the most duplicitous individuals who say, we are not at war with Russia. We absolutely are. You don't get to provide weapons, training, military, and volunteers, and then be like, but we have nothing to do with this war.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And it's even worse because, like, I think it's still a majority. We can maybe pull up the polls if they're up there, but, like, how many Americans still support the Ukraine war? And I think it's a majority. And obviously these people think, we're fighting for democracy, we're fighting to protect international borders. But, like, if the truth were to come out that, like, we're fighting because, like, they have dirt on Joe Biden, and we're literally risking the entire world, and they might have. Okay, there's the.
This is
stats.
Gallup from 1 month ago. 62% in June 2023 support Ukraine reclaiming territory. However, it is going down.
Slowly going down. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think hopefully what would bring that bar to the left more would be, educating people on the real reasons we're at war. And I don't know if it's because they have blackmail on Joe Biden.
No,
it could just be
no.
Geopolitical, like fucking, the neocons.
It is very much wanting to gain access to energy for Europe, to expand the European economy.
And
the
if
European
you can-
economy is stagnating.
If you can supply weapons to Ukraine to damage Russia's military, that's good for the U.S.
But they say that, but I don't get why that's good for the U.S. Like, why is that an end? Why is weakening Russia, which by the way means killing like young men on the battlefield? Why is that an end to the U.S.? And I once I was on, I don't know if we published this, but I was on Capitol Hill and I asked this to Dan Crenshaw. He was like, hey, we're weakening a strategic adversary. And I was like, well, why are they a strategic adversary? And he was just like, oh, you're pro-Russia. I'll see you later. And it's like, No, I'm just like, I don't want to blow up the world.
Because they're a BRICS nation, they want to get off the U.S. petrodollar. They want to create their own rival currency. They're starting to, and the U.S. views that as a big threat. Russia is the easier target out of the bunch. China is too large. Yeah. So in the meantime, NATO expands its presence in Europe, gains more control, bolsters the European economy to compete with the Chinese economic bloc, and Russia, being the easier target, goes after them right now.
But the funny thing is they didn't used to be in BRICS, and they didn't used to be trying to get another currency. Like, why were they our strategic enemy ever? I don't understand.
Russia?
After the Soviets fell, it was like, yo, that's
let us
our
go
best
back in time, my friend.
Yeah, let's go to 1993. What the hell's going on? We're supposed to not
you
be
keep
encroaching.
going back. It's never just because the Soviet Union collapsed doesn't mean that the sentiments and the people there, their worlds changed. For a lot of people, the world did change, don't get me wrong. But for powerful individuals, political leaders, and the oligarchs who are seizing control, they were born and bred of this world, East versus West. So you can go all the way back and keep going back in time to find where the dawn of conflict emerges. But U.S. interests competing with foreign interests, and the U.S. has been, in many ways, losing this in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of it has to do with there is the fact that being a constitutional republic weakens us in terms of executive action. The Chinese Communist Party snaps their fingers and they get things done. They build a bridge overnight. Why? Because if you don't do it, you get locked into gulag, or they're,
But then they also build a bunch of empty apartment buildings that have to get torn down because, central planning is, it's inefficient, or it's, you're at the
sure, but they're
talking about ghost cities.
They're using a combination of the two. They have. So this is an interesting merger between the total communist authoritarianism and having a little bit of low-tier, low-level economic activity be allowed. So this results in some kind of capitalistic growth, but you've got to be a member of the party. The party's got to be in
fascism.
Your company. Yeah, essentially, right?
Yep.
So the U.S., I would say, my view of Joe Biden or any of these presidents, save Trump, in my lifetime, it's the intelligence agencies that are running everything. And I think it's fairly obvious. And the way we've always described it, and even for Barack Obama, is that he's like, when I get in office, we're going to bring our troops back. And then as soon as he gets in office, he sits down and they go, Mr. President, and they slap the documents in front of him and say, this is why you'll do as you're told. And then anybody who says otherwise, they just slide a picture of JFK right up and say, once again, this is why you'll do what you're told. Mm-hmm. So I do think the intelligence agencies behind the scenes, first, most of what we think we know is probably wrong. The news we're reading is probably wrong. Come on. We know they lie all the time. And we're still trying to base our perception on this war off of all of this stuff and what Joe Biden is doing. I do think the people at the CIA and the FBI want the U.S. to win and would prefer it if all of our lives were better. However, in terms of conflict, we are just assets on a battlefield. We are economic numbers. So freedom doesn't matter. Our rights doesn't matter. The Constitution doesn't matter. All that matters is the global sphere of influence for U.S. and Western interest.
But even if you're at the CIA and you think in these terms and you want to maintain the petrodollar, which makes sense why you want to maintain the petrodollar. But the risks, they don't think of the risks of why is the Donbass worth risking nuclear war if you're the CIA?
It could give Russia carte blanche access to the Black Sea through Crimea.
They already have
East. But if they really solidify it, that means that they're going to make Turkey become their ally. And that's a threat that Turkey will leave NATO, because Turkey is the exit from the Black Sea into the Mediterranean, and you can't get out without Turkey.
If Turkey got out of NATO.
Oh, yeah, it would be
that would be the end of everything. If Turkey leaves NATO and joins BRICS, I mean, we bifurcated the Earth into two hemispheres.
Why do you say that? What makes you think
because
that?
Turkey
They control the Bosphorus.
Yeah.
What?
They control the Bosphorus. They control the strait into the Mediterranean from the Black Sea. I mean, that's tons of economic activity for Europe that will be that is under control of Turkey. So long as Turkey is working with NATO, we have that advantage.
Yeah, but I mean,
Phil,
just having Turkey not in NATO doesn't mean that Turkey automatically will shut off the canals.
No. I mean, if Turkey sides with BRICS, if Turkey does say to the West, you are now on the let's just say the not nice end of the stick, that's going to put more pressure on us. The issue with, when I look at Ukraine, we got to go back, and the place I typically start, and it goes back much further than this, obviously, is the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, Syria. The U.S. and our interests in the Middle East obviously were a conflict between the U.S. and Russia. I mean, even going back to the Mujahideen, the support of these groups so that they could fight the Soviets, etc., we're still in there for very similar reasons. Why is it that Syria falls into civil war? How convenient for the United States. When we were facing obstruction from Bashar al-Assad, all of a sudden the country is collapsing. Well, we want to build a pipeline. Pipeline would have gone to Europe, offset Russia's Gazprom monopoly, and would have helped bolster energy and expansion, economic expansion in Europe. All of this stuff ties together. It's no surprise that there's a counterterrorism official from the CIA, a director who is now on the board of Burisma, an energy company. Hunter Biden joins that board. It's U.S. interest to stop the prosecutor investigating it. This is all about, I think they're looking at hard energy expansion economic numbers. They're saying we want X amount of growth over this many years. They're looking at it like Russia is growing at this pace, China's growing at this pace. They're working together. If we do not have X amount of growth, they take over. Thucydides' trap, World War III, we lose. Chinese Communist Party wins.
Okay, but so if you take a step back, even if you're still at the CIA looking through their perspective, and you take a step back and you look at like how things have gone over the last like 20 years with all of these, regime change efforts we undergo, we spend like trillions of dollars and we just completely destroy these countries that we were hoping to kind of control. And then you look at Afghanistan, like we pull out anyways. So it's like,
but you're missing the bigger picture.
We don't have a good track record.
Do we destroy the countries that agree to our control? No. The countries that bend the knee and kiss the pinky ring, we never hear about invasions or coup d'etat or anything like that because they did as they were told. It's the countries that defy the U.S., and not just the U.S., but Western powers that face these, we came, we saw, he died. Is that that's how Hillary Clinton described it.
About Gaddafi in Libya.
Right. Yeah. So a reason will be made, and the people who don't fall in line do as they're told.
So what I was going to say is like, because you kind of said the goal is like control and money, which I guess are two different things. But if they just wanted money, if the people at these defense companies and CIA wherever want money, it's like, why don't they just? I mean, like we spent. Well, I thought you said that, but
economic expansion, right?
Yeah.
They want to see the sphere of influence of Western nations expand and maintain a unipolar domination on the planet, on Earth. China is pushing that boundary, and we are now very likely, I think it's safe to say, we are a multipolar world, meaning we now have the rise of multiple superpowers, which brings the very real risk of mass conflict and war. After World War II, we saw the rise of the liberal economic order. The intention was to prevent this from happening again. They tried it with the League of Nations, United Nations. They want
so on that point, like
control.
they created it to prevent this from happening again. But now the evidence seems overwhelming that like it's the driving force for why it's happening again.
Always.
And so
there's no simple answer to it.
This exercise has been like difficult for me because my brain does not work. I imagine like any of these people at the CIA, but like why they need to dominate and influence the entire world when it's like look at this amazing landmass we have over here on like the Western Hemisphere. It's like, why can't we just like enjoy this and live on our farm and like take it easy, especially these guys at the top who have all the control in the world.
I agree, but they've made the argument very clear. China will not stop. They're trying to take the South China Sea. They're building military bases on these.
Yeah, but they're not going to come here. They're not going to come here.
Well,
Hitler. But what about Alaska? What about the Aleutians? It's a question of will they come here or will they expand their influence into Africa, which they're already doing, South America, the Belt and Road Initiative, and then all of a sudden in the U.S. we are constrained and can't get access to certain resources. That is their view, and they say it plainly. Right. I'm not saying they're right, but they've made their argument very clear.
But also Belt and Road is like military bases. Like Belt and Road is them like getting countries in debt, which you can say is like done
the U.S. Western model.
Right, but I mean, like they're building infrastructure, or they're like influencing them to like on international to vote with them on international organizations. But like they only have like I think they only have like 2 or 3 foreign military bases, and they're like artificial islands near China. We have military bases all over. That's what I'm saying is like, why are we so worried about China when they don't yet have all these foreign military bases?
That's why, because they're expanding.
It's kind of like,
but not militarily.
But
they are. And you're saying it's a small number, but that doesn't matter. What matters is they are. That's it. The intelligence agencies.
But we have troops in Taiwan. We have troops in the Philippines and base.
That's not an argument.
No, but it's like, why do you think they're doing it? Maybe because we could talk to them and say, hey, guys, don't build this base on this artificial island. We'll pull our troops out of Taiwan. You know what I mean? So negotiations could happen to prevent it, as opposed to like
right. But you're not making
warmongering.
You're not making an argument. It's simple. There's a unipolar power structure where the West controls things through economics and through conflict, and those that don't fall in line. Hillary Clinton, we saw, he died. That's what happens. China starts expanding. Russia teams up with them. This is a threat. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if the guy across the street threw one rock at you. The moment he does, you call the police and say, I will not stand for this. Now you can argue that the guy with the rock threw it at a guy who's got 17 tanks and a bunch of RPGs lined up. But either way, they're going to be like, oh, he's throwing rocks at us.
Right.
China is expanding in certain areas. Their influence is growing. Their economy is growing. It is a threat to the U.S. We are now facing a multipolar world. And I view it like after World War II, you get the liberal economic order. You get these powerful elites who are like, we are going to use this position to control everything and prevent this from happening. They pass it down to their kids, the next generation, who start to slowly screw things up, who pass it down to their kids who have no idea what the hell they're doing and have fumbled the whole thing. And now we are facing a massive crisis. But these people inherited this. They don't know better. So they're just thinking, we better fight this war to prevent it from happening somewhere else. And you're like, okay, well, look, there's two outcomes. I suppose the parent tree is we do nothing. Thucydides' trap dictates the likelihood of World War III is tremendous. And then war happens, or we just start it all now. Push back and hope that holding back Russia from the Donbass and putting pressure on China stops the expansion and we don't end up in a Thucydides trap.
Yeah, I don't see. Well, in Ukraine specifically, like, do you see Russia? Well, certainly not Crimea. I think there's no shot Russia leaves Crimea. There's 2 million Russian civilians who live there, and
it's basically been Russia. We had, I think it was Dave Smith, I think it was Dave Smith who mentioned Russia didn't invade and take over Crimea. Yeah, they stepped out the door of the military base and said, hi, guys.
I think like 3 people died or something.
But it's not that. It's the point is that they already had a military presence there.
No, I know.
So they didn't. It was that they walked out of the military base and said, how's it going, everybody? We're all
And I think they've
here.
actually had that base for hundreds of years.
That's right.
But so it like, and then I just hope there's people in the U.S. who like understand that and are like, oh yeah, we're just waiting to play that card of like, you
nobody
guys can
knows
keep
any
Crimea.
of this stuff.
Well, what do you mean?
You go talk to the average person, average liberal. Look, man.
No. I'm talking about people in the top brass of the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
The challenge with those who support all this is that you go and ask any liberal who's waving a Ukrainian flag, and they won't be able to tell you the first thing. They can't point to Ukraine on a map.
Yeah, I mean that was the whole Dan Crenshaw thing of just saying I'm pro-Russia when I tried to ask him, what.
It's just like it was like the war with Iraq and the invasion of Afghanistan. It was like, are you with the terrorists or are you with us? It's like, dude, you want to invade a foreign country and kill their leader. I got questions. And they're like, well, then you support the terrorists. No, shut up.
Yeah.
But that's what they go for because the average person doesn't want to care, and doesn't want to pay attention. They want to play their games. They want to watch their shows. They want to see Taylor Swift. They don't want to deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
And I will give a shout out to Dave Smith. That bar that was Serge pulled up earlier with the poll going slowly to the left. I think Dave Smith has been doing a fantastic job of describing the history of this war to people and disseminating it. So shout out to him.
Let's jump to this next story we got from the Post Millennial. I love this. We have testimony that Joe Biden is on the phone with Hunter Biden and his associates at the same time. We have testimony from one of Hunter's associates that Joe Biden is getting kickbacks. And then CNN says Hunter Biden was selling the illusion of access because Joe was on the phone, but Joe wasn't talking shop. Does he need to? Seriously, if they're sharing bank accounts, sharing email addresses, if Joe Biden is taking his son's salary, it's like the Mafia. It's like the guy's negotiating a deal with the other guy, and he's like, listen, the Don says he wants you to do this or else. And then they're like, oh, I'm not going to do anything. And then all of a sudden the Don walks in the front door and goes, how's you guys doing? And they're like, oh, everything's good, man. We're doing everything you ask. And they run away. See, they're trying to make this claim that makes literally no sense. The moment you put Joe Biden on the phone, it's a whip crack. The vice president is in the room. Well, don't you forget it.
So I hear your point and I agree with it. But also I that claim is just not true. I mean, this is... This was in the New York Post the other week of when apparently there's a text from one of the Burisma executives, and he says to Hunter, "Can you ring your dad?" ? And then Hunter placed him on speakerphone, and sorry, this was not a text. This must have been a call. But Hunter goes on speakerphone with Joe Biden and says, "These guys, quote, need our support." So, I mean, he wasn't just selling the illusion of access. He was putting these guys on speakerphone with his dad and telling his dad, we need to help them. So
where's that from? That you just...
That's from New York Post.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that CNN is desperately lying. And
what does the CNN article look like? I'm actually curious to see how they frame that, other than post-millennial.
I think this is it. Former business partner says Hunter Biden sold illusion of access to Joe Biden.
Former business partner says, source says.
That is so ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
Former business partner
We got a source saying a former...
Source.
Yeah. A couple degrees of separation there. I'm surprised they published that.
Plausible deniability right there. Yeah, we know. It is like, Tim, as you were doing your mafia metaphor, it's like if the mob member was like, "Hey, we got a job for you, but before you go, you're going to take my son along." Like, how is that not mafia interference with the guy's son, the mob member's son? He's bringing his son along for the game
well, it's
now?
like
this crackhead is all of a sudden invited along because he's
the son of the boss goes to like a bunch of guys who are delivery guys or drivers or mules or whatever, and it's like, "I want you guys to move all this product. My dad wants it done." They go, "Your dad doesn't want this done. This is your job. You're trying to upstage your." He's like, gets on the phone and says, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" And then his dad's like, "Everything's going good, son." He's like, "Yeah, I'm here with the boys. They're saying everything's good, right, boys?" So he didn't talk shop, but come on. Well, we know exactly what that was.
Well, but I agree. Like, even if you're doing that, it's still fucked up. But like, that isn't even what Biden was doing. Like, Joe is clearly more involved than that.
What's like the dirtiest stuff he was doing? Do you have the data
on
the quotes or like any specific like the three most corrupt things that he did that we have like documented proof of or extreme amounts of evidence?
Well, I guess I don't know, like, policy, like which policies arose from it. I just mean like the text. I don't know if there's anything that originates actually from Joe, but it's just like the text that Tim referenced earlier of Hunter saying, Pops. He's talking to his nephew or his daughter or something. He's like, "Pops takes 50% of all my shit. I'm not going to do that to you when you get older." So, I mean, like, why would Hunter lie about that? You know what I mean? Like that. So it's
in private texts.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one example. I guess we don't have here from New York Post how Joe responded to "these guys need our help." But but there is a timeline. This was like, it was like a matter of weeks later that he gave that speech we played, and he got the guy fired. So yeah, I mean, the timeline lines up as well. Like, "Dad, these guys need our support." Couple weeks go by. Prosecutors fired.
I love that they're like, Joe was on the phone with Hunter's associates a couple dozen times for no reason.
Yeah.
He didn't talk shop. It's like, wait. 24 times on the phone with these guys? What were they talking about? Going golfing?
Where's that what? Joe was or Hunter was?
Joe was on the phone, on speakerphone, over 20 times with Hunter Biden's associates. That's what Devon Archer testified.
Oh, wow.
So the question is, like, for what reason? Yeah, it's like...
It's not a social
call. Exactly. Which is another reason that CNN article is ridiculous. Like, did they include that fact in there? Like, it was kind of just the illusion, but also they were on the phone 24 times.
I really do feel like unless the Democrats decide that they're going to replace Joe Biden for... as running for president as the candidate, I don't think that there's anything that's going to happen no matter what the evidence comes out, no matter who says anything, because I think Merrick Garland is incredibly corrupt. I don't think that I think that he's going to protect the Bidens as much as possible. And it sucks to be so black-pilled, but really, I mean, the evidence is overwhelming that it's worth having hearings about, and you can barely get. And Democrats don't even want to, hear the evidence. So I hate the fact that I'm blackpilled.
Did you say at the beginning though that you think they are going to replace Joe Biden as the nominee?
No, I said unless they're going to, unless they start to really like wind up Gavin Newsom or whatever.
Okay.
I love that Harry Sisson guy because he's like 20, but he's got the education of like a third grader. And I'm not saying to be mean. I'm saying quite literally, he tweeted out that was it Alito? Supreme Court said that Congress has no authority to regulate them, and he was shocked by it. And I'm like, bro, we learned that in like second grade. It's called the branches of government. They're all equal branches of government. They have no power over each other. They have degrees of power over each other for checks and balances. That's about it. But he really doesn't get it. And then he recently posted a photo. I bring him up because he posted a photo of Joe Biden looking horrifying. Oh, yeah. And he was like, he looks so cool. It's like, dude,
how much did he?
I got to be honest. If you're like
Dark Brandon,
if you're a Gen Z dude and you're following that guy and you agree that flabby skipping leg day Joe Biden is cool looking, oh, I'm sorry, man.
The Harry Sisson thing's interesting. It's him and his buddy. They just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and they're like these young, kind of good-looking, like young guys, and they do that frenetic thing where they do this a lot, like the Dash Dobrowski thing. But it caught on, I guess. It's like a meme.
I was just trying to find the clip now. There's a hilarious one where he's just like frantically like. He doesn't take a breath, and he's just talking, but it's hilarious. But what I think your point about those guys, your point, they should come on. That'd be fun.
Scared.
But your point about those guys coming out of nowhere, I think 100%, those guys would not have a huge following if like the right didn't just make fun of them all the time. I think that's mainly those are all their followers are the right making fun of them. So
on purpose.
That's why I see them. Is because people
purpose.
You think they're doing that on purpose?
The right doesn't want to prop up the most articulate liberal speaker. They want to prop up the worst and most pathetic liberal speaker, so then they can knock him down, blow him, straw man.
Yeah.
Basically, be like, oh, look at this guy and his arguments.
Yeah.
If there's someone who's very calm and makes a well-reasoned liberal argument, nobody's going to be outraged. They might respond and be like, I think you're wrong about this, and they'll send a link, and then that no one cares.
Right.
But you find someone who is genuinely ignorant of the facts, but screaming about nonsense, and you're just like, this is a spectacle.
Yeah.
This is
But do you think Harry Sisson is doing that on purpose?
I think he's getting paid to do it.
Yeah, I think that.
Paid by who?
He works for
DNC?
he works for some talent agency, not directly. He works for some talent agency that gets funding from certain Democratic groups. So I've seen reporting.
Oh, okay.
And he gets paid to post. I mean, that's my assumption based on the news reporting. I could be wrong, but it's clout building.
Okay.
Everybody who does
I
this,
thought you
who
were
generates followers, is going to make money from doing it.
Okay, but I thought you were saying like he's intentionally being stupid and ignorant because he knows it'll rile up the conservatives. And
That's
then
true too.
But so then why would the DNC pay to like embarrass themselves with a guy like Harry Sisson?
No one said they were smart, but I think you're thinking too absolutely.
Right.
There are people who post things intentionally stupid because it generates attention. I post troll posts, and then the media takes them seriously. I once said impeach the Queen, and I had a whole article written about Tim Pool, journalist, calls for the impeachment of Queen Elizabeth before she passed. And I'm just like, what? It was a joke.
I can't believe they didn't impeach her.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But they're like
Impeach the Queen.
Posthumously.
No, she was alive at the time.
Posthumously.
I don't even remember why I said to impeach her. Like something had happened. I guess she was not woke enough. I don't have no idea. But yeah, a lot of these people on social media, they just say utter nonsense to get followers.
That's a
it.
good observation. You were saying that people will retweet or repost like the cringe stuff because it's so bad. You're like, hey everyone, I want you to see how horrible this is so you know what you're up against. But I see it and it's like, I just feel like you're that guy talking to me when you repost him. So like I have to unfollow people when they repost trash content to make fun of it. I don't want that trash content in my life. I understand the mentality of like,
and then you're also like you're convincing yourself of like a caricature of the left that isn't true, and then you're not prepared. Like if you want to debate the left, you're not really prepared on what they actually believe. And then like also in like your everyday life, you might know like most of my friends and family members are like left wing, and so if I look at Harry Sisson and I'm like but then if I get in a real conversation with like my relatives, I'm gonna be like unprepared. I'm gonna be like, oh, they're actually a lot smarter, and like I should it would be obviously better if everyone.
Disagree. I certainly think Harry Sisson is a caricature of liberals who's like, it's shock content, but his understanding of reality is about on par with the average liberal voter. They could not point to Ukraine on a map. And there's varying degrees of this, but I got to tell you, man.
Well, I agree with that.
The key moment, a good example, is when we had Hunter Avallone on this show. And I said in one example that Joe Biden said, if you don't fire the prosecutor, you're not getting $1 billion. And he smugly said that never happened. And then I played the video and he was like, whoops. It's like, dude, I don't care for debate. Like in this idea that we're going to stand on a stage and hit a buzzer and be like, well, I have an argument and do different debate tactics. That's stupid. I care about, here are the things that I think. Here's why I think them. if you are wrong, I will say you're wrong. I'll pull something up. If it turns out I'm wrong, I'll say, oh, I was wrong about that. Wow.
Right, I agree, but that is a debate. That's like the point of a
But
debate.
my point is, I have no concern or fear of debating a liberal on any of these issues at all. And I don't think I know everything about these issues. I, in fact, think I'm mostly wrong about them.
Because you're open to discovering the
Because
truth.
the deep state, the intelligence agencies are not giving us the true and correct information about what's going on. But what I can say is I've read substantially more about all of this than any of you. And I do believe if you took an SD card and neural linked it, all the basic news coverage of Ukraine and Joe Biden into the head of the average liberal, they'd vote Donald Trump instantly. It's just that they don't know, they don't want to know, they watch CNN, and that's about it. Or MSNBC. And they believe people like Rachel Maddow, who's nearly in tears when Donald Trump isn't indicted as a Russian spy.
They may not vote Trump, but they'll definitely not vote Biden.
They vote Trump.
I am kind of that guy. I don't immediately go to the opposite party.
It's not about that.
Or RFK.
If you downloaded all of the information on the Biden family, Ukraine and the war, the Obama administration, just all the news articles.
Hillary, all her emails.
Into their brains. They would just be like, now I understand why everyone's voting Trump.
Yeah, full red pill.
Full red pill. But if you go to a Trump supporter and you were to download into their brains all of the news articles about Donald Trump, the thing is, most Trump supporters would be like, these are contradictions. This is the point. My favorite two stories from Politico. One, that the Democrats were, that Ukraine said that there were Democrats trying to interfere in the 2016 election or something to that effect. Then you have several years later, Politico reporting once again that in fact that was Russian disinformation, but never retracting or correcting their own reporting, saying otherwise. How can Politico run two stories, one making a claim and one saying that claim was Russian disinformation without correcting? Because it's garbage nonsense. Now, the fact that I know those two articles exist gives me some keen insight into what's really going on in the world, especially considering who the journalist was who wrote the second article. You put those articles into the minds of the average person, and they're going to be like, something's not right here. Trump supporters already know the news contradicts itself and lies all the time. Many of these liberals just believe Rachel Maddow, and they think Fox News is lying. Granted, not a big fan of Sean Hannity, but Tucker Carlson was pretty good. But they just read garbage from like the Daily Beast and then believe things that aren't true.
I remember when I got red pilled, it was the most depressing experience I've ever had in my life. It was like near suicidal, like the way I gave up on life when I was like, this really is all fake. Not all, but like this is whole American dream thing is like fed to me over on the backs of slaves, really.
Let me pull up this story from the Daily Beast. This is a good example. Joe Rogan says it's a fact that January 6th was a false flag, cites Ray Epps. Now, that's a misleading headline if I've ever seen one, but of course, that's the Daily Beast. If you are someone who only consumes garbage nonsense like the Daily Beast, you might think Joe Rogan's this crazy Alex Jones guy. However, fortunately for Joe Rogan, he's like one of the most famous people on the planet, and many of his fans know who he really is, so these smears, they don't go very far. But let me read this for you. They say, wildly popular podcaster Joe Rogan once again pushed the baseless conspiracy theory. I love that the January 6th Capitol insurrection was a false flag orchestrated by the federal government, adding that pro-Trump rioter Ray Epps clearly instigated the attack. Now, hold on there a minute. Ray Epps is on camera the night before and the day of telling people to go to the Capitol and go in the building. He's then seen whispering into someone's ear, and he's on the front line as the people breach the Capitol grounds. Curious. They didn't go after him. The feds didn't go after him. He was protected by the media, defended by the media. And even now, they're trying to obfuscate what he did. It's fascinating, isn't it? Earlier this month, Epps sued Fox News for defaming him. This we know. And in that lawsuit, we're hearing that Epps may actually be facing criminal charges. They go on to mention that Rogan's got a contract with Spotify, blah, blah, blah. Rogan said the intelligence community had a vested interest in this going sideways, adding that if somebody wanted to disparage a political party or to maybe have some sort of justification for getting some influential person like Trump offline, that would be the way they would do it. And Joe Rogan is completely correct. He was talking to Jim Gaffigan, who did not know anything about this. I got to tell you, when I listen to Joe Rogan talk to Jim Gaffigan, I'm a political guy. Like I sit here, I read all this news. I am just like shaking, wanting to talk to these guys.
You should get Gaffigan on the show and
be like, Ask me any question and I will answer it, and I will show you all the sources. I will pull them up one at a time, and you can, by all means, not believe The Guardian or NPR, the New York Times. Just, you got to have some standard. Do you believe these outlets or not? Do you believe Politico or not? Okay, well, that's what we're basing this off of. But Jim doesn't know anything. Yeah. He doesn't know anything about it. So what did Joe Rogan really say? He said they never went after Ray Epps. He's seen on camera instigating this stuff. Makes you wonder. And now we know what he said was a fact, is that there were guys there who are intelligence assets encouraging people, or I should say some kind of government agent or law enforcement. This is not controversial. This is confirmed.
Yeah.
They're admitted to doing it, to going, let's go. Hey, go, and pushing people towards the Capitol.
Oh, is that admitted that agents pushed people towards the Capitol? And said,
there's body camera footage of people associated with law enforcement. I'd have to pull this stuff up. I'm going to be very careful here because I want to make sure we're getting it right. Yeah. But they're saying things like go. When questioned, I think it was the FBI said, we cannot answer, were there people involved at all?
Yeah, they pled the fifth basically, and I did see that clip, and Joe Rogan cited Epps, and he cited the FBI director pleading the fifth. But yeah, it was like early on. There was like very early on after Jan 6, there was a New York Times article, and it was like federal agent describes his experience on Jan 6. So it's long been acknowledged that there were federal agents in Jan 6. I think the strongest argument for false flag though is the pipe bomb, which apparently they have footage of like the guy who put it there, and they apparently know where he lives too. They've like I forget where I heard this, but they know his address, and yet they have not prosecuted him or explained whether it was a pipe bomb or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they've investigated what that was.
Well, that's scandalous because that guy's like,
yeah, Thomas Massey has been posting about this, and that is kind of piece of, in my opinion, that's like the most compelling evidence.
Because the bombs that were placed around the Capitol heighten the entire situation to such a level that you might be able to justify bringing in federal troops or detaining people without charge or trial.
Jim Gaffigan makes a good question though. He's like, why didn't Trump call anybody in? Yeah. Why didn't Trump just say, get law enforcement down there right now? I think it's fair to say that Trump was bumbling quite a bit. I don't think Trump had any intention on anyone going into the Capitol. I think he genuinely had no idea what was going on. And I don't mean that he didn't know there were people storming the Capitol on one side and going in the other. I'm saying he did not comprehend the situation.
Well, you've read, though, that apparently after his speech, he told Secret Service to drive him to the Capitol. And they said, no, we're taking you.
Pretty sure that was a fake story.
Oh, was that a fake story?
Because they claimed that Trump attacked the driver.
Well, yeah, it was exaggerated that he attacked the driver. But what I gathered from that was like, if Trump did actually want to go to the Capitol and talk to these guys, could have been a totally different outcome. If Trump was there and he was like, hey guys, we want to do this peacefully, as he was
Trump
saying
was still
in his
speaking
speech.
when they were breaching the Capitol grounds.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But either way, if he had gotten there, he could have ended it. So it's weird that Secret Service would say, no, we're not letting you go. And it's weird that Trump couldn't override that with just a direct order also. So,
Yeah, I got personal criticisms. I mean, I wasn't the president. President had a hell of a job during COVID, man. But the way he didn't send in federal troops during the riots of 2020.
President did a hell of a job during COVID?
Well, no.
You think Operation Warp Speed was good?
No, I don't think he did a good job. I mean, the president has a hell of a job during something like that is what I mean. And so I can't talk too much shit about him and be like, well, if I was there, I would have this and that, because backseat driving, hindsight's 2020. Mm-hmm. But he didn't send in the troops day one of the 2020 insurrections, whatever the hell, these street riots that broke out after the George Floyd death. I told Tim the next day, where are the fucking National Guard? What are we waiting for? This is going to spread out of control. This is like a fire burning right now. And it did. 2 days later, the city's starting to get burned down. And I'm like, where's the president of the United States, the armed chief of our military commander? I think he was so afraid of being called a fascist, he didn't want to bring the troops in. And then so where were the troops on January 6th?
I want to make sure we get this in the segment. This is an article from WLOS.com. An FBI informant embedded within the Proud Boys on January 6th, identified in the record only by the name Aaron, testified for the defense. The witness said he was not aware of any plans by the Proud Boys to invade the U.S. Capitol building. So that's one simple example. We then have this. This is a filing. This is a defense writing. The DOJ recently disclosed involvement of undercover officers and informants from other agencies aside from the FBI and D.C. Metro Police. At least 40 undercover informants. So that was one of the big stories. Wow. There were another couple videos that came out. And you guys should definitely fact check me on this one. It is hard to do because most of the corporate press ignores this stuff. But there were a few videos from law enforcement who were shouting things like, I think the video in question was, let's go, keep going, or something like that.
Well, that's
So-
fascinating because if that's true, then that's kind of the crux of the whole false flag claim. So if that's true, then Joe Rogan was in fact correct.
Well, no. The question, Joe Rogan asked whether or not the possibility of a false flag could be and whether it made sense. And it certainly does make sense. They used the insurrection thing for 2 years, just screaming nonstop over and over again on TV that it was an insurrection. And now the speculation is they'll try to use this to get Trump removed from the ballot. So certainly there was a benefit to all of this. They deleted Trump's tweets calling for peace. They deleted Trump's Facebook posts where he was saying, I don't know if they deleted, they suspended him. Trump had said things like, everybody go home, we respect law enforcement. They shuffled that away and then claimed he was calling for violence.
If you're a commander and you've got your capital is under siege by its own civilians, like, and they're starting a riot or they're starting a thing, like, you've got a few options. You can bring out the guns and try and turn them down. That you can beg them to stop, which doesn't really work against large crowds, or you can insert active duty officers into the crowd to break it up.
Provocateurs.
Agents to break it up from inside. That's probably the smartest method.
Joe Rogan points out the WTO protests in Seattle, they called the Battle for Seattle. They had agent provocateurs there. We've seen videos. There's a lot of speculation all the time about agent provocateurs. There was one story in Canada where protesters had military-style boots, started acting violently. The left has argued this for a long time. They conveniently forget the possibility when it comes to the right. Why? They're happy it happened. You had the Gravel Institute tweeting in support of January 6th, except for the fact that it was right-wing. They actually tweeted that it was good what happened. It was just bad that it was conservatives or right-wingers that were doing it. They like it. When it comes to agent provocateurs, the left will tell you to your face the government stages fake activists to incite violence for the purpose of discrediting protest movements. And then when the right is protesting, the left says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And here you are.
Yeah. You can make the same argument for election fraud as well.
Yep.
We need people to stand up for the rights of the people you don't agree with. Like, if you see... maybe it's a big ask, but if you see your political opponents under duress and they're being treated poorly or illegally, you've got to stand up for those people.
Yeah, you need to stand on principle as opposed to
a certain degree. To a certain degree.
There is no history. There's no evidence of that happening from either side, but definitely from the Democrats for the past 15, 20 years.
And that's why I say to a certain degree, because perhaps when the country is unified, but there's partisan bickering, you get angry when the DOJ is weaponized against a political group. You say, hey, guys, you can't do that. Unfortunately, right now, we're in something substantially deeper than that. And now the question is, when they're trying to destroy you, do you provide them with your support?
Yeah, it's the first time in my life I've ever been in a situation like where they were in the 50s, where they were really afraid the communists were going to take over the country. So they were like J. Edgar Hoover's blacklist or whatever. He started blacklisting all these people that had communist ties, and people were losing their jobs and their careers. And like, maybe if they hadn't done that, we would have become a communist nation. So I don't know.
Do you know that communists are excluded from the Civil Rights Act?
Yeah.
I think I did know that.
This is still true to this day. And I got questions about the legal merits of that. It's in the law. And it's not, I do not believe it's been adjudicated. So I wonder what would happen if you were just like, no communists allowed.
This is like, I don't have any kind of evidence. This is just my impression. But in the 50s and the Red Scare and stuff, and I really need to go and do more reading about like what it was actually like. But it really seemed like the people that were really opposed to communism in the 50s and 60s, it seemed like they really understood that the left, the international left, has a fundamental different understanding of the world. I was listening to this audiobook called Explaining Postmodernism by Stephen Hicks. And one of the things that he talks about is the way that the left doesn't have the same kind of foundation that the right does. And it's about, liberalism versus authoritarianism. And you're not going to be able to find common ground with people that have a fundamental different understanding of what the truth is or what reality is. And if there is no truth, then it's fine to use ad hominems and call everybody Nazis and stuff. And we're seeing the effects of that now. It's been 20 or 30 years that 30 or 40 years now, actually, that the left has called everybody on the right a Nazi, and every president's a Nazi, and it always goes to the absolute worst, where, there's a lot of people in America now that unfortunately, that are not so afraid of the word of being called a racist anymore. They're just like, well, you call everybody that, you call everybody Nazi, you call everybody, so it doesn't matter. And that's something that we have to deal with, and I don't see how we can deal with the struggles that we're having as a country if we can't even agree on what the philosophy that the United States is founded on.
But hold on, because what you're giving credit to the people in the 1950s, and you're kind of saying, well, they were actually good intention and they were actually against communists and pro-freedom.
I'm only saying that maybe they understood better than the average person now. I'm not trying to give them undue credit.
But then you talk about the difference in ideology, which is one is collectivism, one is individualism. And I agree, I'm a big individualist. But when you go on this like Red Scare campaign, you're immediately dissolving one of the crucial things of individualism, which is like innocent till proven guilty.
Yes, one of the flaws, or one of the greatest challenges that liberalism has, is liberalism accepts the arguments of opposing viewpoints as if they are coming from liberals. Right, so if you enter the disagreement expecting the person you're having a debate with to be honest, but they are not going to be honest, you can never have a fair exchange. So that's one of the things that liberals have to figure out how to deal with, and that's why liberals, and that's why the communists say liberals always choose fascists over communists, because the only way that you can fight authoritarians is with authoritarianism.
Right, but then you become like the monster you're trying to fight. Like it's what Tim said with like the original purpose of like these international bodies, and then the grandchildren just forget what the purpose was. Like, look at what the FBI is now. Look at what the CIA is now.
Well, yeah,
like,
but
how could you say that
they were always that way?
Yeah, and if you look at J. Edgar Hoover, they were always that way. So right. I just don't think there's any credence to this argument of like we need to embrace authoritarianism to get rid of communists.
No, I'm not. I didn't say that we need to embrace. I didn't say we need to embrace it, but I'm saying that the current problem that we have is that liberalism doesn't have a
mechanism to
deal with.
I think what it is that Jefferson quote
but it does,
of like the price of liberty
and it's
is eternal
only
vigilance.
supporting liberalism and not supporting other ideologies.
Fair enough, but the problem that we're experiencing now is authoritarians lie to liberals, shit libs, bad liberals. They lie to shit libs, and shit libs believe them because what the authoritarians are telling the liberals sounds good.
But the tool then is education, and it's very difficult, obviously, especially with echo chambers. But to me, that's the only viable tool. And that was another Jefferson quote, something about educating the masses is like how to secure liberty.
A lot of that's with tone, because the data itself doesn't convince people you can do it with a good tone.
And another shout out to Dave Smith, because I think he does that extremely well.
He is so good at that.
Yeah. Let's jump to this war
story.
story.
Who's super apolitical, loves him.
He's so funny.
Let's jump to this story from NPR. We love NPR, guys. A drone attack on Moscow briefly shut one of its airports and injured one. Take a look at this photo. There was a video I played earlier. We don't have it pulled up right now, where it's a guy driving down the highway and he's just filming this destruction on this building. And it is terrifying stuff. They say Russian authorities say 3 Ukrainian drones attacked Moscow in the early hours on Sunday, injuring one person and prompting a temporary closure for traffic of one of 4 airports around the Russian capital. It was the 4th such attempt at a strike on the capital region this month. Now, I saw some people on Twitter claim this was a secret government office that was protected by Russian security forces. Perhaps that makes sense. I don't know why else they would strike the target. They're going to go after military targets. But this is now escalation of warfare into civilian capitals, into Moscow. This is, I think we're starting to see a real case for this expanding well beyond just a Ukrainian conflict. It's already now in Russia, and where else could it go next as this is spreading? There was a news report that a Russian strike was 600 feet from the Romanian border, which could theoretically launch this thing just dramatically out of control. And
is
then
Romania a NATO country?
I don't know about Romania.
I don't know.
Find out.
Well, so I will say, I was at State Department today, and Serge, it's not on Gray Zone yet, but you can maybe bring it up on the State Department's YouTube channel. I asked him about this drone strike, and Tim, to your point of like...
Romania is.
As of tomorrow, Romania is in NATO.
Really?
No, as of 2004.
August 1st, 2023? Are you sure?
It says 2004, post-Cold War enlargement. It says alphabetical list of NATO
you're
member
right.
countries, and it says Romania 2004.
Maybe this is a typo. That's weird. Oh, no, it's saying that as of tomorrow, Romania is a NATO member, but it has been since 2004. Sorry to interrupt, Liam.
Okay, no worries. So yeah, I asked the State Department about this, and to your point of like, did Ukraine do this? I mean, it was fairly obvious. So like an hour after this drone blows up, Zelensky made a statement, and he says, quote, "Gradually the war is returning to the territory of Russia, to its symbolic centers and military bases. And this is an inevitable, natural, and absolutely fair process." So Zelensky said that, and he's explicitly said, we're targeting symbolic centers, which to me, I could only mean, areas where civilians gather. So it sounds like we're targeting civilians. And I asked the State Department this, and he basically said, well, I don't know if that's what symbolic centers means. And then he brushed it off and wouldn't let me get a follow-up in. But to me, when you make a speech like that an hour after the explosion happens, that kind of looks like you're taking credit for it. And so it's extremely scary. I mean, and it's crazy that the U.S., we keep, U.S. officials keep saying, like, well, we don't support attacks on Russia's border. Well, it's like, well, you keep funding them and arming them to do it. So at what point are you going to, enforce your lack of support for attacking Russia's border? And, it's just scary. This war keeps escalating every day.
We've got U.S. civilians on the ground in Ukraine, and the U.S. providing weapons, which end up in the hands of many of these people. Like, Russia knows full well what's going on. When it comes to this strike on Russian targets, Russia's not going, oh, those Ukrainians are at it again. They're saying NATO just attacked our capital. So this seems like the only path forward is going to be escalation.
Could be a false flag. Could be Russian drones doing it to
Doesn't matter.
themselves.
Either way, the same thing happens. If it's a false flag, then Russia wants to escalate, and it's even worse.
But if it was a false flag, why would Zelensky come out an hour later and basically be like, hey, we're going after symbolic centers?
I guess you'd be like if you were the commander and then some random elements within your country bombed some random elements within the enemy country. You'd be like, see, there you go. American greatness.
Yes, let me bring you back to the era of piracy where there would be privateers and corsairs who would receive letters of marque from their government to disrupt the enemy's supply lines. And then let's say it was the English and the French. The French would capture a pirate ship running black sails or whatever, a black flag. And then these guys are clearly British. They'd go to the crown and say, we know that you are ransacking our trade lines. It's like, oh, how dare you? We would never condone piracy. I am offended. That's what they do. So what's going on right now? It is the most annoying thing ever when these leftists are like, the U.S. is not involved in war. Those are volunteers. I'm like, shut up. It's effectively the same thing. No one's you can believe whatever you want to believe so that you can sleep at night. But I assure you, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Milley, whoever it may be, is under no illusion that we are not involved in this. They know exactly what they're funding.
Like Vietnam.
And Russia is the exact same.
In the Vietnam War, it was the Americans versus the Russians, basically.
Right.
Versus the Russians and the Chinese, maybe. But somehow we just never came to blows with Russia. We never even talked about it as if it was against Russia.
We did. We called it proxy war.
Yeah, they were funding the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese.
U.S. Middle Eastern involvement was proxy war against very much so Russia and to a certain degree Chinese interests.
Funding the Mujahideen, yeah, that was a
against the Soviets. And that's what Syria is. Our support for the rebel groups. It's because Syria would not side with us because they're allied with Russia. So of course, anyone in government aligned with Russia, we opposed. See, how convenient.
I'm like, did ISIS, were they funded by the Russians?
CIA.
Yeah.
Like you would think if the Russians were really our enemies, they would have been funding ISIS. But I did not remember that happening at all.
This is why they were happy when Trump decimated ISIS. When Trump started taking them out, Putin's like, this is good.
Yeah. It was good for both.
And then they claimed that the reason Putin didn't invade Ukraine was because Donald Trump was catering to Putin's interests. And I'm like, yeah, destroying ISIS? Not getting us involved in wars? Wow, it's almost like he was doing what the American people actually wanted.
And he armed Ukraine with a bunch of weapons too. So
that's true.
Which is obviously not in Russia's interest.
I don't know. What do you say?
There was also a tweet on this explosion. This account tweets it out, and they're like, "Oh my God, drones hitting Moscow! How unfortunate!" And then like a little sunglasses emoji, meaning like, we like this. And then the General Michael Hayden, who's the former director of the CIA and NSA, tweets out, "Oh, it's an act of God." like about this explosion. There's like, you can watch the video. There's like this woman who's screaming. She's in terror. It's like a horrible video to watch. And the former director of the CIA and NSA is like celebrating this on Twitter. It is insane.
Of course.
I don't, it's like that shark attack where there was the shark attack and people were like happy because some Russian dude got eaten by a shark.
Jeez.
Oh my gosh.
Who has nothing to do with the war. It's like, people who don't realize that it's the government's perpetrating these wars, and like, you know, most of these soldiers are conscripted anyways. It's like, you should be mad at the governments, even if you, you know, believe the whole narrative around Ukraine. You should be mad at Putin and the government. You don't celebrate like civilians getting bombed in Moscow.
What do you think
don't
is
celebrate
that?
that?
What do you think is a just solution to the war?
I mean, I think the war could have been avoided in the first place by giving up or holding referendums in, which, by the way, Zelensky campaigned on this. He campaigned on holding referendums in the Donbass and Crimea because there was like a decade-long civil war in the Donbass. And, of course, Russia basically controls Crimea. And this civil war was awful. And so, and Poroshenko's, by the end of, like, by Zelensky, when he was campaigning in 2019, Poroshenko's approval rating was so low because of this war. It was like people didn't want to fight this war. And that's why also the Azov battalion, which is kind of the neo-Nazi sect, grew, you know, so much stronger, is because the only people who wanted to fight were those guys. But so Zelensky campaigns and he's like, I'm going to hold referendums in the Donbass. I'm going to let them decide whether they want autonomy, whether they want to secede or be in Ukraine. And he wins overwhelmingly. He wins like 75% of the vote. And in the East, everyone voted for him in the general election. Then he gets in and he doesn't do it. He seemed open to it. You can actually look, there's like Biden 2021 White House statements where Biden is like saying like, no, Crimea is Ukraine. We're going to stick to this. And Zelensky earlier had been like, well, I'm still open to referendums there. But then Biden gets involved and is like, no, Crimea is Ukraine.
Boris Johnson was sent in and crushed a peace agreement.
Yeah, that was after the war. But so in terms of like a peace agreement could have been just hold referendums in the Donbass and Crimea. Crimea overwhelmingly, even by like U.S. government conducted polls in 2014, Crimea overwhelmingly wants to join Russia. The Donbass, it's not clear whether they want to join or secede or want more like just governing autonomy from Kiev. Just hold those referendums and see what happens. That was Putin's demand before he invaded. And you could have just granted that, and people say like, well, you can't do that because then he'll just be even closer and he'll keep going. But it's like, take the chance on it then at least, or like negotiate something better. But like the idea that this counterfactual of like, well, Putin would have gone even further. It's like, well, guess what? Like hundreds of thousands have died. Ukraine is destroyed and millions are now refugees because like of that counterfactual that you're so sure of. It's like, we could have held these referendums and we potentially could have avoided the entire war. And we still could do that now.
I think if Donald Trump gets elected, the day they call it for Trump, the hour, the minute, the war stops.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would probably do maybe some form of what I just said. I don't know what exactly.
No, I just think the moment they say, and the winner of the 2024 presidential election is projected to be Donald Trump, Russia immediately says ceasefire.
And Zelensky, too, would be like, finally, the dogs are off my back. I can do what I want with my country. Like if Zelensky,
I think some of the dogs on his back are kind of the far-right guys within his own government.
But
though.
Putin stops right away because he wants more leverage. So Putin is probably going to be saying, Trump's going to come in, he's going to end this, we're not going to get everything we want, we'll get enough of what we want, but if we're still fighting, we'll gain more leverage by stopping the fighting right now, then brushing up to Trump's ego and being like, we knew that as soon as you got in, you were going to be reasonable and help us end this conflict, so we pulled our troops back. Trump's going to be like, absolutely, here's what I expect. It's over.
100%. I mean, I think that's true of not only Trump, but I think that's true of RFK and Vivek as well.
Agreed.
But I also think like Trump winning is just a massive fantasy. I mean, I think I can't recite like the whole history. I know a couple interesting facts about the whole JFK assassination. And to me, it's overwhelming that the CIA killed him. So,
Donald Trump won in 2016.
Well, he won. And then, the intelligence agencies, I guess Hillary and her team fabricated the dossier. And then this kind of...
They tied stones to Trump's feet.
Exactly. But if you think, do you really think he's going to be allowed in with like the stated goal of like getting revenge at the deep state? Or do you think they might just pull the trigger at some point?
Well, I don't know about any of that. I mean, RFK's talked about the risk based on his family history. So perhaps, and there's been other people who have speculated horrifying things may happen. But look, if I believe that if Donald Trump is harmed, this country implodes overnight. I mean, it's chaos beyond chaos. If something happens to Trump in that capacity, not an option.
Well, I think what's terrifying about that is the left would believe it. The left would be like, yeah, people hate Trump. No, but that's why you're so correct. Is like the left would believe it. They'd be like, yeah, everyone hates Trump. Of course, someone would assassinate him. But the right is going to be like, no, yeah, exactly. And then
it doesn't matter
you're
what
right.
happens.
That's going to cause chaos.
So you have to ask yourself why the United States has not, say, assassinated Julian Assange. When Hillary Clinton reporter said, can't we just drone this guy? And they're like, yeah, he's in London, right? Why? Certain people, they got no problem with. Maybe it's a 16-year-old American citizen. Barack Obama's like, we're going to blow him up because his dad's a terrorist. So they killed Abdulrahman al-Awlaki in a civilian restaurant in a country we're not at war with.
Trump killed his son, though, too.
Trump killed...
Or his
daughter.
His daughter.
Now, see...
Hypothetically? I don't know.
That is a claim made by the family, whereas the drone strike on a civilian restaurant is confirmed by the U.S. government.
And another thing, it's one thing to catch a round in a
him.
gunfight, and it's another thing to have someone shoot a missile at you. Like the daughter...
But investigate Trump.
Yeah, fine. I don't care.
If this is collateral damage and an American girl died, he's responsible for that.
Yeah.
Presidents shouldn't be allowed to get away with this stuff, especially when we're not at war with this country. But fair point, right. Barack Obama was like, blow him up.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Barack Obama had his actual kill list, list of people.
But they claim they were targeting a different guy, and he was it was whoops, we got the wrong guy, but
convenient, whoops.
But yeah, So I think if something happens to Donald Trump, this country gets ripped apart in 2 seconds. And the reason why they don't go after people like Julian Assange is because they don't want to make martyrs. You will make that man immortal and only in his best features.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there'll be some behind-the-scenes shenanigans to keep him out of office before an assassination for that same reason. He's too powerful, like metaphorically, for the
I agree with that. I'm just saying, if there's a chance he's going to get into office, they'll pull
it's
Plan
not
B.
just-
What I find fascinating is that Roseanne says there's not going to be an election. And I had to ask her to clarify, because Michael Malice said, of course there will be. But I think it's probably a mix of the two perspectives. There will be an election, but no one will care. No one will accept it. No one. You think 2020 was bad? 2024 is going to be, it's just going to be nuts.
It's going to be bad.
Because now, after 2020, you're going to have every single Trump supporter filming everything. You are going to have 100 times as many videos coming out showing weird things that may be innocuous, maybe nothing, or maybe suspicious. And no matter who wins or who loses, the other side will refuse. We saw the Boston Globe story where powerful Democrats suggested the West Coast secede from the Union in the event Donald Trump gets elected. That's how crazy they are. Now, what do you think happens if Trump loses again? This time, there's going to be people everywhere filming literally everything. I thought 2020 was going to be more chaotic than it was. Maybe I'm wrong about 2024. But I just don't see anyone accepting the results.
Yeah, I mean, I'll settle for making it to 2024, and as long as, we do not blow up the world in Ukraine or over Taiwan, if that ever happens. So
let me pull up this story from the Daily Mail. Check this one out. JFK director Oliver Stone says he made a mistake voting for Joe Biden in 2020 because he fears president will start World War III with his support for Ukraine. There you go. He said, quote, if we don't stop this, what Biden is doing, this guy, I voted for him. I made a mistake. I was thinking he was an old man now and that he would calm down, that he would be more mellow and so forth. I didn't see that at all. I see a man who maybe is not in charge of his own administration. Who knows? It seems that he's dragging us stupidly into a confrontation with a power that is not going to give. This is their borders. This is their world. This is NATO going into Ukraine. This is their whole other story. He's right. Imagine what would happen if China went into Mexico and took large portions of its government and started putting troops and sending weapons. The U.S. would go nuts.
I just saw the U.S.
and we did
because there's literally. I just saw a tweet by someone that was talking about Chinese police stations here in the U.S. policing the Chinese
biolabs.
Biolabs and stuff here in the U.S. I don't think that the American people I really think that as much as there are people that complain a lot on the internet and stuff, I really think that Americans are way too comfortable to get really, really buck wild in like some kind of revolutionary way. They'll get out in the streets and they'll, throw rocks and stuff and throw Molotovs and try and get into fights with the police. But that's only the most mentally questionable or at risk, if you want to call them that, people. The average your average person has, even the people that have it bad have it better than most humans in human history. I just don't see the revolutionary energy that
What's your point though with China? You just mean like the fact that people are not angry about
that?
Yeah,
there's Chinese, there's talking about building a Chinese listening post in Cuba. There's actual Chinese I guess government police that are policing Chinese former Chinese citizens or whatever
and the
that
biolab
are
thing
in the
just
US,
came out with COVID, mice, and HIV.
And China's done the same thing in Canada. They violated. If the United States actually took the Monroe Doctrine seriously anymore, there would be at least some type of retaliation between all this stuff that we talked about that we mentioned in the past 5 minutes or whatever, and the spy balloon that went over and stuff. I understand that most libertarians are like, we shouldn't be looking for problems with other countries, and I agree. When you got a country sending a police force into your borders and policing citizens of your country from a foreign country, I get it that you're anti-war libertarians, but hey, at some point the actual sovereignty of your country matters. Even if you have open borders.
Well, so I agree, and I get like we should be moderately upset about those things, but I think on the scale of like, I agree there's no revolutionary energy, but like I'm way more concerned about like this war we're talking about, what Roger Stone's talking about blowing up the world. Like if there's a Chinese police station in my local city, that is pretty weird and concerning, but I'm much more concerned with like my president potentially being blackmailed by Ukraine and then therefore looping me into a nuclear war that could literally kill me one day. That's where the revolutionary energy needs to be focused. And I agree there's a lack of it.
It could simply be blackmail. That Hunter Biden's on the board of Burisma, Devon Archer calls DC, says we want the prosecutor fired. The elites the oligarchs, the people in Ukraine know exactly what Joe Biden did. And then they call him up and say, we're going to spill the beans unless you give us what we want.
Yeah, no, I've like gamed that out in my head as well. I think it could exactly be that, and it's just crazy. And, we should all come together as a country and just say, Joe, whatever they got on you, it's totally fine. We're not going to judge. Let the blackmail come out. I'd much rather see a naked photo of Joe. And like
it's not that.
Well,
it's going to be evidence. It's going to be felonies.
Right.
It's
I know.
Multiple.
I was going to say with
sedition.
a kid. I was going to say like a naked photo of him with a kid. But like, just let that come out and just end the war, man. It's more important.
Support pardoning Joe Biden?
To end the war?
Yeah. Or just in general. Just even preemptively with no expectation of anything after. Would you?
I don't. With just for no reason.
Assuming that there's stuff is going to come out later is why my reason would be, but would you do it not with any expectation or like tit for tat, just be like, now?
Would I do it right now, hoping like the war, hoping there is blackmail and hoping the war ends?
Or for any reason, would you?
Yes, I would. Pardon? Yes,
for any reason.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I would do it for that reason.
I think that's why.
But he's asking if you would straight pardon him for no reason.
Well, you're not really. I can't tell if you're saying no reason. I mean, if there's no reason,
I'm not as concerned with the reason. I'm just asking if you would do it. If you would just say your pardon.
There are reasons where I would do it, and that was one of them. But
if you have,
I think of it as like
evidence,
5D chess. All these pardons that we got to do. I see no other way forward.
If you have evidence of him doing wrong, you have a tribunal. If we know for a fact that he was engaged in illicit activities, then he is criminally charged. If you have no need to pardon him, if you have the pardoning power, you simply just indict him.
You could do that, indict and then pardon him.
Why would you pardon him?
So that we don't have this tit for tat, so that in the next generation they don't come back for you. Hunter's sister doesn't come back with guns ablaze. You don't want to just keep the cycle moving.
Hunter's sister.
Yeah,
whoever. I mean, I wouldn't be worried about that, but yeah, I agree in terms of like. I
don't agree with the idea that by allowing elite criminals to get away with their crimes, you actually stop the crime.
Well, what you do want to do is expose them and make the world know what they did. but then pardon them.
But
for
if you
me tell
expose
you-
them and the world knows what they did, and then you pardon them, that is not going to disincentivize people from doing the same in the future.
I don't know if anything can disincentivize it.
Yeah. All the incentives are in their favor.
Guillotines.
Well,
Yeah, but
that didn't work well in the French Revolution because, like, who's in control of the guillotine? Like, who's deciding?
The guy ultimately got his head cut off.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
Robespierre.
That's right. Not just him, but, you know.
There's the threat
He
of
was a
force.
crazy.
I mean, the threat of force is usually the go-to. Like, how do you stop corrupt leaders from being corrupt?
If it's
Threat of
seditious
force,
and if
but,
it's
like,
treason, there's varying degrees of punishment. But,
I think hold on, I think on some level you can, like, it's not doesn't only have to be punishment, and I guess, Ian, what you might be getting at is, like, you can appeal. I imagine in theory, like, you can appeal to the humanity of these people. Like, I know, like, you know, Lindsey Graham to me does not seem like a guy who has much humanity in him. Joe Biden, I mean, that hugely brazen, corrupt kind of that mafia display is awful. But, like, when you also listen to that clip of him, remember when that clip of him came out of like a voicemail on Hunter's phone, and he's like, "Son, I love you. You know, we'll get over this drug addiction or whatever." To me, that sounded like a dad who loved his son. So I think
that's naive.
It's naive to think like I can tap into that humanity of Joe Biden's, but I'm just saying it's there, and he feels love for his son. But yeah, and maybe there is some way to tap into that. Like, I don't know if that's what you're getting at with the pardons, but
Pardons won't solve it. So
I'm just saying I hope Joe Biden wakes up one day and says, like, God, you know, I do have these grandchildren, and, like, I don't want to blow up the war. What? I don't want to blow up the world because I want my grandchildren to live a nice life. I hope that deep down he's thinking something like that. I'm not going to bank on it, but I'm hoping it's there, that sentiment.
No, I think he's more thinking, I will burn the world to the ground before I lose power.
You think Biden thinks that way?
I think he thinks to a certain degree that way. I don't think he's the most ruthless guy ever. He's a bit of he's just a corrupt guy. But these people tend to have an attitude. I should say this. Corrupt individuals are corrupt because their attitude is usually, the whole world will burn before I lose.
I don't know if he's that strong of an asshole. But you've heard, like, the nobody fucks with a Biden hot mic quote from him?
No, when was that?
I forget. I think it might have been at that DeSantis presser he had. But
You guys really think he thinks that much at all?
well, that's another.
Look, just
that's
because he's
that's another
old now doesn't mean he did not build his life and his family off of
course.
these ideas that he will take whatever he wants.
Right.
Look, you wonder why it is almost every politician is a bad person. It's because good people don't have what it takes to manipulate everyone around them to gain political power.
Right, that's a good point. And I do have that naive streak in me because I got to be honest. So before I was into politics, like during the COVID era, I barely read the news at all, and I liked Anthony Fauci. Like, I would watch the news and I was like, you know, I kind of like this guy. I like his raspy voice. He's kind of charismatic.
Disavow.
And recently I read The Real Anthony Fauci by Robert F. Kennedy, and it was mind blowing to see, like, when you learn about everything in that book, from the whole, like, AIDS pandemic and how, like, the chemo drug that they were prescribing was basically causing AIDS or making it way worse. AZT, and him experimenting on orphans, like killing hundreds of orphan children and debilitating many more. When you realize that guy can go on TV and, like, smooth talk the entire world, smooth talk, like, it's kind of what Tim is saying, and it's like, Jesus, like, that's a level of, like, psychopath that I can't even imagine.
Indeed.
Must you think like the psychopath to defeat the psychopath?
Yeah, there's the one thing that I want to say is, like, you talk, you know, a lot about, like, forgiveness and stuff like that, and I am so, like I said earlier, like, I'm so black-pilled about even being able to communicate with people. It's such, and it just struck me that, like, you're still looking for ways to to expect good behavior from people, or to offer people the option of behaving well, and I just don't think that they're gonna.
Yeah, you know, I'm obsessed, not really obsessed. Ben Franklin is a big inspiration, and that guy always had, like, a twinkle in his eye and kind of a knowing smile, like, we already won. So he was like a diplomat to the enemy.
Franklin did?
Yeah, Ben, he knew the whole time. He was like the father of the rebellion, the father of the United States, essentially. Like, everyone looked up to him as this old dude.
How do you know he had a twinkle in his eye? Did people write that down?
I in the pictures I've seen of him, and I think maybe they do. They talk about
paintings?
him. He was just, the paintings and the stuff. He's so jovial, and he's an inventor. He's a brilliant, and, like, he knew his morale was so high. I think he just instilled the morale of a nation with his books and his communication style. So hopefully people can do that.
We got to jump to this story. We got this Twitter thread from Gonzalo Lira.
Oh,
this is the guy who was arrested in Ukraine, who has just recently gotten out and is tweeting that he is seeking to flee the country. He says he was being tortured in jail when he was arrested. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You know a lot about this, Liam. He's an American citizen.
Correct. He's an American
Coach Red
citizen.
Pill, right?
Coach Red Pill.
Coach
Yeah,
Red
yeah.
Pill.
And Serge, if you bring up my pinned tweet, is me asking the State Department about him. In I think it was maybe like a month ago or a couple months ago now. And yeah, I mean, so that was when I was at the Epic Times. It didn't. The question didn't go over so smoothly at the Epic Times. I don't know if I can get into that too much.
Well,
but,
let's go through this guy's Twitter thread. He tweets, right now I'm about to try to get out of Ukraine and seek political asylum in Hungary. And I will also add, this was from 6:23 p.m. It's currently 9:24 p.m. Eastern. I'll check his Twitter to see if he successfully crossed. He goes on to describe what happened to him. He says he broke no laws. He was accused of breaking no laws. He was just reporting on what was going on in Ukraine, and it made Ukraine look bad. So they arrested him. He says, my indictment explicitly states that all I did was discuss publicly known facts about the war, the epitome of free speech in a democracy. But Zelensky's Ukraine is no democracy. It's a thieving, corrupt, murderous gangster regime pretending to be polite Western democracy. He's right about that. And that's obvious because Ukraine has always been that since the fall of the Soviet Union. Once arrested, I was given documentation assuring me that I was guaranteed the right to contact my lawyers and loved ones. In fact, I was blocked from calling anyone, even my lawyers, and I was not permitted to post bail. He goes on to describe that he was tortured. And once inside his prison, I was tortured in the 2 of the 4 cells I was in by the other prisoners. Guards never beat prisoners. They outsource the torture. One prisoner actually apologized to me, telling me he had no choice. He wasn't lying. I understood. I got a cracked rib in my 1st cell, but it wasn't too bad. The worst stretch is my 4th cell. He goes on to say that he was beaten for over 30 hours and sleep deprived. The craziest thing about this, and this is pretty brutal, so you've been warned. He says, at one point, 2 thugs held my head and used a toothpick to scratch the whites of my left eye while asking me if I could still read if I had just one. Not going to lie, that was unnerving. He goes on to say, the U.S. Embassy called me 3 times but gave me nothing but support, in quotes, empty bromides. The guard told me to remove my shirt. He had an injury and bruising to his chest after being beaten. Let's scroll down. He goes on to mention that they found out he had money. He wasn't poor, and they extorted about $70,000 out of him, and he's lost about $100,000. He says the conditions of his bail were that he has to wear an ankle monitor, surrender his passports, and not leave the city of Kharkov, much less the country. However, after posting bail, he didn't get an ankle monitor, and they returned his passports. He was going to say that he was told by one guy, they were telling you to leave. And then he says he doesn't know, so he decided he will die trying. He rode his motorcycle across Ukraine, 1,400 kilometers in 2 days.
Wow.
He said, I'm going to Hungary to ask for political asylum. When I fail to show up in court in Kharkov, an arrest warrant will be issued, likely an international warrant. No doubt other EU countries will comply like sheep, returning me to serve 5 to 8 years in a prison labor camp. Regardless of the fact that Kiev arrested and imprisoned me for YouTube videos for free speech. What happened to European democratic values? Well, I'll tell you, Gonzalo, freedom, liberty, and the Constitution, whatever you think you have, mean nothing in warfare. They can tell you these things, but it's only when you're in a safe and secure state will they allow it. He says, I'm posting this thread just as I'm getting to the border checkpoint. I'm also posting videos on the 2 channels I have access to, the Roundtable and Gonzalo Lira again. If you don't hear from me in the next 12 hours, well, I'm on my way to a labor camp. Wish me luck. Wow. I'll pull up his account right now and see if there's any updates. That I believe that was the last he posted.
Oh my God.
Maybe he has some replies, and we don't know if he made it. That was 3 hours ago. So this is a crazy story.
This is insane. And so this guy, a little bit more about him. He was born in California. He's a U.S. citizen. He's like a dual citizenship in Chilean, and a lot of people use that to discredit him. But he was born in the U.S. He is a U.S. citizen. He was in the past like a contributor for Business Insider, Zero Hedge. I've talked to some people like who I trust, and they kind of have like a bad opinion of him. They're like, oh, he's kind of a wacko. But at the end of the day, he is a U.S. citizen, and all he was doing, that is correct when he says that, all he was doing was making YouTube videos, criticizing the U.S. NATO support for the Ukraine war, criticizing Zelensky. So I asked the State Department about this a couple months ago, and Matthew Miller, the spokesman, was just like, yeah, we're aware. This was when he was still in jail. He's like, yeah, we're aware that he's in jail. We support free speech, and I'm just going to leave it at that. And I was like, well, are you working to get him released? And he's like, I'm just going to leave it at that. And so clearly, it sounds like Gonzalo. They probably had him arrested. Well, yeah, they might have given the order to get him arrested, but it sounds like he escaped prison, right? If I'm reading that right.
No, he was released, and they gave him back his passport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
They released him, gave him his passport, and said, don't leave. However, he was supposed to have an ankle monitor.
And no passport.
Oh, I see.
And no passport.
I see. Okay.
So what he tweeted, which is what we were just reading, is that someone told him, yo, they're telling you to leave. But it could be a setup. Like he said, he leaves, he takes this and he says, I'm getting out of here before, and that's what they use to get him.
Yeah.
But what do you do other than that?
Well, this is wild, and like I'm excited to kind of ask the government about this now, because like this could change. It's an interesting story. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how like our government reacts to this, because like, are they going to acknowledge? Like, are they going to even acknowledge this story? Because inherent to it is the fact that they've been letting this U.S. citizen rot in prison for a couple months. You know,
they're going to ignore it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. But I hope that I can ask them about it, and see what they say. But it's yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, he had the wrong views, and so we allowed, or even maybe directed, our ally to imprison him for speech.
I remember when he was
insane.
When he was making those videos, I was like, in my gut, I thought, wow, what is he doing? He's in he's in the country that's at war right now, and he's talking crap about his own like, that doesn't go well for citizens if you're in a war. Like, you gotta,
yeah, right. But the U.S. should still stand up for the principle of free speech. I agree with you. I asked Thomas Massey this question. It was not recorded, but he basically said the same thing. He was like, well, what was he doing over there in Ukraine? But it's like, he lived there. He lived there before the war started. He wasn't only reporting, he lived there.
So
so that was his home.
What's like the set, like, if an American goes to another country and becomes a citizen, have they not just forgiven all their American rights? They no longer have American rights.
No, he's still a
the
citizen.
New country's rights.
He's not a citizen, he's a resident.
Yeah, he's a citizen of the U.S., a resident of Ukraine.
But his U.S. citizen rights don't apply to other countries. Like, you can't
but when
you Chinese rights just because you're a Chinese citizen.
But go. I mean, listen to the Biden administration. Listen to the State Department. Whenever there's a U.S. citizen Brittany Griner. Like, remember when she was detained in Russia? It was like all we could talk about is like release him, and then
they traded the merchant of
Wall
death,
Street,
right?
Yeah, and then the Wall Street Journal journalist who was also in prison in Russia. I don't know if he's still there, but it's like those things we can't stop talking about it because it's our adversaries imprisoning our citizens. This is our ally who we have a ton of leverage over, imprisoning our.
Which says to me the likely scenario is the Biden administration ordered his arrest.
Potentially. I asked a bunch of people in Congress about this. Zero out of maybe like 25. I would go in the halls of Congress and outside. Zero out of 25 even knew he was in jail.
How plausible does everybody here think it is that the U.S. government ordered him to be arrested? How plausible? On a scale of 0 to 100. I'm going to go ahead and say 100. 100% plausibility. I'm not saying it's definitively true.
Yeah.
Well, so what I would say is, like, at a minimum, they probably gave the okay. You know what I mean? Like, Ukraine's not just going to arrest an American citizen, so they probably at one point had to be like, can we arrest him? And then Biden said, yeah, sure.
You want to know why I think the U.S. ordered it? Because Barack Obama killed a 16-year-old American citizen, and that wasn't the only American citizen he killed. So when you can state definitively that Barack Obama murdered a 16-year-old American citizen in a drone strike in Yemen, then I'm like, yeah, arresting a guy is like nowhere near that bad.
I would say it is plausible, 100%, that Biden could have ordered that guy's arrest, but I see zero evidence that he did, so I'm not going to assume anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Likely, I think.
No, I am. I'm going to assume the U.S. was involved because they wouldn't get him out. They wouldn't talk about it. They ignored it.
Yeah, we're too closely, tightly knit with that country to the U.S. not to be involved.
Well, I agree they were involved. Yeah, I'm sure it was discussed.
I'm sure they went and they said, hey, Biden administration, we got this guy. He's an American. What should we do? And they're like, lock him up.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Probably because like Biden probably doesn't care if people are talking crap about the Ukraine. It's Biden. He's checked out. But Zelensky is like obsessively shutting down radio stations and TV stations. I think he shut down 2 of their biggest 3 TV stations.
Yeah, he was doing that before the war as well. He was sanctioning political opponents as well as media outlets that would criticize him. This was before the war, so yet another reason. It's like, why are we Why are we propping up this regime?
Was he doing that censorship with pressure from the West?
I don't know, but he was doing it. Yeah, I don't know where the pressure came from, but yeah. So he does have a history of like not being a super democratic, pro freedom guy, and yeah, this story in general is insane. I mean, I hope Lira. I wish him luck, and I hope this also injects into like the public conversation of like, wow, the U.S. just like let this guy rot there, and like I hope it opens up a conversation about like, that we're not really on the side of freedom and democracy in this war.
All right, everybody, we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you really do like it. It really does help. And head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member at timcast.com to watch the members only uncensored show coming up in about a half an hour. But for the time being, we will read your Super Chats. Sean says, American Flags, #2 song in the country. Tom McDonald and Adam Calhoun, make it #1. Absolutely. Go to iTunes, go to wherever you buy music, Amazon perhaps, and buy American Flags by Tom McDonald. And let's build some culture. Tom does a really great job. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tim, I got too caught up in our recent streak of cultural winnings that I nearly forgot when it comes to our political leaders. All we have are the hand sitting on strong-worded letter Republicans. But the good news is the Republicans are sending more strongly worded letters. Well, I was getting worried for a minute. Rand Paul sent 2 so far.
Hope they give him a chance to read the old ones first.
Oh, yeah. Brandon Hampson says, Ian is slowly turning into ripped Jesus.
Dude, I look good in the mirror. I look good.
So on the strongly worded letters thing, it's like, what do people want them to do?
Impeach Merrick Garland. They have the House.
But can you do, with just the House, you can impeach Merrick Garland?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Conviction is something different.
Okay, that's a good suggestion.
So impeachment, and then, but at the very least, we're saying just try. Instead, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? What they're probably doing is they're going to Democrats and saying, look, they want us to vote to impeach Biden, but I'll tell you what, I'll vote no if you agree with my funding for insert X project.
Right.
Then they go, you got it. That's it. Welcome to Congress. Cody Justin Fannin says nothing will happen. Biden will get a strongly worded letter. Congress is weak, corrupt, and lazy. I wish we had political leaders that stood for anything. I agree. I'm not even convinced Donald Trump is the passionate leader who stands for against most of this. I think for the most part, Trump had an agenda he wanted to enact that he believed in. What I'm saying, but I don't think Trump's first term was him being like, we've got to purge the deep state and go after these people. He certainly said drain the swamp, but I don't think he actually passionately believed it because he kept a lot of these awful people in. I don't even believe that Trump cares about it so much today. I think Trump wants revenge today. Big difference.
Has there ever been a leader that got in and was like, I'm going to do everything for you guys, all the people. Then they get into power and they're like, yes, everything the people want. And then it's exactly what they wanted.
Like all of them.
To be fair, Trump tried really hard to keep his promises.
Yeah, true.
But what I'm saying is Trump had an agenda he thought was good. Not everybody liked it. He got in office. He tried to enact that agenda. He did say he wanted to drain the swamp. He did to some degree, but he brought in a bunch of bad people that were your typical establishment Republicans, but then still tried to enact his agenda. Oh, poor him. If only he just fired everybody from the get-go, and he should have done it. Mm-hmm. But I remember at the time, they're like, they'll impeach him if he does. Yeah, how did that work out? He got impeached twice anyway.
Yeah.
They impeached him when he wasn't even president anymore. Matt H. says, Ian, you're supposed to weigh yourself after you take a dump in the morning. That's how you measure approximate muscle gains.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
There you go. Troy B. says, anyone else excited to see Tucker on Twitter change to Tucker on X?
That was a good one.
Yep. Mac N says, the UFO story is very old, Tim. Not really a distraction, but more of a convenient time to bring it up. Happened in the 80s. Have a good night, guys. It's a story that was written and published today, but I believe you are correct. It's about an old story.
What's that in reference to?
The story that UFO almost started World War III. But I think that's a different story, actually. I think the other story was that all the nukes were disabled by UFOs. Yeah. And now apparently there's a story where if a UFO almost started World War III or something like that. We Are Change says Ian needs to take the chill pill ashwagandha.
Oh, yeah.
It helps boost natural testosterone and helps with stress while working out.
Luke Rudkowski, ladies and gentlemen, we are change.
What is that? Take the chill pill thing? That's Luke's ashwagandha. Brand?
Ashwagandha. This is something.
Take the chill pill.
It's I've taken it before at Luke's suggestion, and it is fantastic. It's nice. It's
But does it have that issue you mentioned of like needing to keep replenishing your testosterone?
I don't think so.
No,
How did
it's
Luke-
more like a supplement. It's just I take ashwagandha.
How
as
did
well.
Luke
Not
actually
It
get
helps you produce it?
takethechillpill.com?
No. It just
Oh.
relaxes you. It allows you to calm down,
Oh.
and that's overall generative of
Take
testosterone.
the chill pill. Take the chill pill.
Yeah, that's Luke's one in his personal one.
How
yeah.
did no one have that domain?
Dude, go to takethechillpill.com. You're
Take
gonna
the
love
chill
it.
pill.
What's
Yeah.
it
I'm gonna get
made
some.
of?
All right, let's.
Oh, he's
we'll-
selling ashwagandha. Nice work.
That's
Probably
the
a bunch
point.
of like seed oils and stuff.
That's a chill pill.
You know,
All right, let's read some
fillers.
more.
It's a
We got
plant.
Steve McGee. He says, "I'm here for watching Ian gain some lean mass. Hearing 129 was pretty shocking. Is Ian Crossland the new trad daddy?
Yeah.
11 inches around. Think about it.
Trad dad. Dude, it was so weird to gain 10 pounds in 2 days. I've weighed 140 in the past, so it's not that weird. But
That is very, very underweight. I'm pretty
so
sure.
amazing.
Have you checked your BMI?
No, soon. Next time I go to the gym, we're gonna do a fat and muscle. Bone.
To be fair, BMI is like a lot of nonsense.
dude, my BMI was 7.5% when I went in the first
That's
time.
not what BMI is. BMI is
Oh, my
a
bad.
number. Like
my body
That's your
fat
body fat percentage. Yeah.
percentage. It's supposed to be like
Body
a
mass
10,
index.
Yeah,
between
BMI.
8 and 12. I was 7. 23 or something. 22.
you are not 23. You're probably like 15.
Been
yeah.
a while. I think I got it measured at the
So
doctor's a while ago.
if you work out, if you lift, or if you're an athlete, your BMI is always super high. So it's kind of nonsense, you know. But for you, you're probably way underweight if you check. Just do it right now. You can take it. Takes 5 seconds. Let's grab some more. Ryan Sargent says, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate the chances of the U.S. going into a depression? 10 being definite. P.S. My wife and I love Rise with Roberto Jr. It is one of the best coffees I've ever had. That's over at castbrew.com. But I do think Appalachian Nights is the best coffee I've ever had. And it's easy for me to say, I'm the one who formulated it. So surprise, I chose what was most delicious to me. And now I think it's the most delicious thing ever. But I really do recommend it. Scale 1 to 10 for depression. It's tough because there's a lot of indicators suggesting things actually aren't going to get that bad in the short term. It's weird things going on. But then I would also add the weird things might suggest weird things. You know, I can't speak too much. I'm not an economic guy. I was just watching. Who was I watching? What's his name? Anthony Pompliano. Is that his name?
That's his name.
Pomp.
Pomp.
Pomp,
Yeah, I was watching one of his videos. He explained a lot of this stuff. Maybe I'm getting some of it wrong, but I recommend checking out his stuff. And I can tell you that when I checked out Max Kaiser's a big finance guy, all he did was scream buy Bitcoin over and over again. And then I regretted not taking his word for it.
Yep. The crypto makes it so it seems like a full-on depression is less likely, but I think you're going to see a wage gap increase where you'll see some poor people get
Already
poorer.
have.
And yeah, I know with the amount of
Already have.
homelessness
Yeah,
that
yeah,
struck
yeah.
the last 2 years.
Yep.
So there's a depression for
apparently-
some, you know.
Apparently Gonzalo Lira also posted on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what it says on that.
Let me
Yeah,
pull this up.
part of me was like, why is he posting? But at the same time, like, what in the hell could anyone in that situation do at this point? But
I
just
imagine-
tell
Oh,
the
I would.
world.
I mean, it's very smart to record your
Yeah,
journey
yeah,
and get
exactly.
people. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I was thinking he would do. Just for his own safety, just post some.
The
That's
last,
very smart.
Last thing he posted was 2 hours ago saying he was about to cross the border.
Yeah,
Hell
he
yeah.
should have. He should have
Nice.
live streamed it. He should have like Twitch streamed it.
Should
We
we
could see what they did to him.
should we advocate to bring him to the U.S. and let him stay here?
He's an American citizen.
Yeah,
So what do you mean?
100%.
American.
If he can get on a flight, he's here. He'll be safe.
Yeah.
But then again, if Ukraine indicts him, the U.S. is going to send him
That's
back.
what I'm wondering.
Yep.
Oh, my BMI, I have the number. I was 18.5. Now I'm 19.8.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. Really?
Yeah.
At 140? That seems really low.
I had a super low.
I mean, I feel like it should be lower.
Yeah, I remember I went to the doctor. I was the lowest number at the normal weight, which is 18.5. All gains from here on up. Just go to the
Nice.
bathroom when you got to go to the bathroom. Sleep when you got to sleep.
Yeah,
And
sleep.
eat twice as much as you think you need.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue this pace though of what is it, 12 pounds per week?
Forever.
I think I would be
Forever.
happy at 170
Okay.
and then just rip muscle, just
Yeah.
shredded for movies. Like I don't want to get too big. But then I'll keep I'll keep it stable after that. So I don't know if it means you keep working out every day.
Oh, okay, so you're okay right now. Normal weight. You know, you're on the low
Cool.
end. You're on the low end. But you were underweight before.
Yeah.
Yeah, 129. Dude.
Gandhi.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
I,
that's like emaciated.
Crazy.
r-
Actually, even at your lowest, apparently you were just at the bottom end of normal weight.
127.
Luke says
127 is underweight.
Luke says Ian hitting the gym. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go, Ian.
Dude, Luke, you
go,
got to
Ian.
get out here, man. You're going to love it. Dude.
Real quick on the
You're gonna get
depression thing.
Shredded, brother.
Real quick on the depression thing. So definition of depression is three or more years of sustained decline in the real GDP at least 10% in one given year. So I mean, is that possible? Potentially. I mean, that would just be very devastating. I disagree with you. I don't see how crypto in any way affects GDP. If anything, it's taking money away from GDP because you're just like putting it into these computers that solve math problems and give people a fake coin. I think I see a lot of benefits to crypto.
What do you mean fake coin?
Well, I just mean it's a coin that isn't backed by anything, but it's the immutable ledger.
But it is.
Well,
Especially depending on which coin you're talking about.
well, so what I was going to
Some
say,
are backed by US dollars.
okay, but then if it's backed, but if it's this is the thing with crypto. If it's backed by an asset, then you are now relying on a third party to honor that commitment.
You mean like buying silver on an exchange and having it stored there?
Well, no, but also you can buy silver and keep it at your house.
Right.
But the point of crypto,
And you can cold storage crypto.
you can cold storage crypto. I'm just saying if it's backed by like a US dollar, if it's backed by an asset, that then you're relying on someone to actually give it to you. One of the cryptos I do like is Monero. That one is like, I don't even own it, but it's like all the transactions are like obfuscated, so they're all washed and so the government can't track you. And I think there's some utility to that. Like if we did slip into some sort of authoritarian world where your transactions are being monitored and stuff, and you want to use something like Monero, I don't think it helps GDP. I don't know if we can go into a depression, but I do love Peter Schiff. Check him out.
He's
For
great.
some econ stuff.
Yeah.
He came down to Occupy Wall Street.
He would
guy's
probably
legit.
agree with that. I think he thinks his whole thing is he thinks we're getting a depression and inflation, and it's going to be freaking bad.
Because we're in stagflation right now as well.
All right, let's read
Which
some more.
is a never happen scenario, and we're already in this. We've had so many never happen things. So a lot of economists say they know what's going to happen. There's no way. No
All
one
right,
knows.
we got
Yeah,
Kato
it's fucking scary.
Astis says an expansion of the idea of the truck company segment earlier. Just for a quick reference, Yellow Trucks is shutting down. 30,000 jobs about to be nuked.
Jeez.
22,000 Teamsters. UPS was found by its union to have made $52 billion in profit in the past 5 years, and UPS is now giving about $7 raise to all drivers. Made me think, why do we demand more in pay instead of demand company drop prices? Well, the staff, they want, the people who work there want to get a bigger cut of what they're producing. That I get. The issue with Yellow Truck is that the company was collapsing and the union was making demands, and then the company just outright collapsed and now nobody has a job. Yeah. So the point I was making is that it's really funny how when it comes to the left's arguments, they're like, the people who are producing the product deserve a share of the wages. And I'm just like, you are correct. And then when the company's facing debt, do we take that money back and they got to pay into the company to cover the debts? No. So they only get profit when the going's good, but when the going's bad, it's everything on the business. That doesn't make sense, does it? All right, how about this? Like here's my negotiation. Everybody gets a percentage, and then when the company falls on hard times, you have to pay to reinvest back into the company. Yeah, no one's going to want to do that. Right. All right, we'll grab some more. Jacob says, listen to Tom McDonald and Adam Calhoun's new song, American Flags. Indeed, you should. We'll grab some more super chats here. SH22 says, the reason why the USD keeping its strength up is because of geopolitical economic interdependence. Keeps people on our side if they have a vested interest in the U.S. That's right. The reason why the U.S. is giving money for gender studies in Pakistan is because if people have the money, they want to use the money. So the U.S. is like, we will bolster confidence in our money by giving our money away. There you go. It really does work that way. Yeah. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, Tim, that makes no sense. Why would the CIA, to avoid communist China becoming strong, prefer the globalist communists at the WEF? CIA is bad, okay? I can explain that to you very simply. You see, the World Economic Forum, people in the CIA, Democrats, the deep state, they took a look at China and said their system is so much better than our system because they can spin on a dime. Mm-hmm. We want that. We just don't want them to be in control. They want all of this live in the pot and eat the bugs. They just want to be the ones running it. It's that simple. They don't believe in the American dream and American values. They believe in power.
I see it a little different. I see three factions on Earth: the communist faction, the economic faction, and the liberty faction. You could say that the CIA has been co-opted and that it's not quite functioning as a liberty faction right now, but this liberal economic
quite.
order.
When were they
faction-
ever?
Yeah, really. 1949, hopefully.
No.
1942 or 43.
I
No,
don't
it was
think-
always
I
the
don't think Alan
power.
Dulles. I don't think Alan Dulles was ever about liberty.
Well, then
Ever.
the Spanish American War, 1898. They legit liberated Cuba and just let Cuba become a free
But
country.
the CIA didn't exist in
No.
1898.
That was the liberal. That's the liberal ethos that I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
The sustaining the Monroe Doctrine. So I think that there's multiple factions. I don't think the CIA necessarily wants the World Economic Forum to take over either, but they're blind with their pants down. Like, how do we stop technocratic, revolution? So I think their ears are
Right.
open.
All right, Cipriano Diaz says, "Hi Tim, my cat is having surgery tomorrow. Broken tooth, fractured paw and jaw. Oh no. Everyone please pray everything goes well. Ian, please send some healing energy for quick recovery. Love you all."
Love you.
I hope everything goes well. I got to give you that rock. Luke charged it in the ocean for you.
let's do
it. We got to grab it.
Ceremoniously.
Yeah. He walked into the ocean with this crystal. And he wanted to make sure you knew that he charged it for you.
Excellent.
I have no idea what that means, but he put it in water.
Yeah,
so
he put his Reiki into it. His electromagnetic field vibrated the subatomic spin within.
He put it in the ocean.
Oh, then there's
And then he
more.
said it's charged now.
The ocean charged it. Oh, maybe those are
charged.
free radicals. Is it ionization
Does it lose
from the salt
charge?
water?
You got to bring it back to the waters of Tijuana.
Yeah, I think so. It could lose charge, but some structures are so great at holding charge, like crystals.
Group B says, went and saw Sound of Freedom yesterday morning for first showing at 10:40, and it was packed. I rewatched the Tim Ballard episode. Dude, what a story. That is actually, I would recommend that. If you go see Sound of Freedom, go rewatch the episode of IRL we did with Tim Ballard as like a director's commentary almost. Or go see the movie again, then go watch the episode we did with Tim Ballard again. So you can get a breakdown and it's fresh in your mind. And what did they break? Like 150 million? I think.
Probably something like that.
Is that what it was? Let me
At this point now.
let me pull
Have you
up.
seen it?
Sound of Freedom?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
It's awesome.
I'm planning to.
Yeah, man. Jim
149 million.
Wow.
Jim Caviezel's got like this silent
Amazing.
pain. The man is amazing. I still haven't seen Passion of the Christ yet.
Well, so what I thought was funny about Sound of Freedom is like when the mainstream media bashed it as QAnon, everyone who liked the movie kind of jumped to its defense and is like, no, it doesn't even talk about the government. And that's when I was like, well, okay, I'm not as interested now. I do realize it's like super fucked up what's going on, but like, and I think a lot of Pizzagate was bullshit, but there was a lot of weird factual things in Pizzagate that raised red flags about John Podesta and stuff. So I would have been much more, and then obviously Epstein is a proven case of basically government sanctioned pedophilia. So I was, I wish the mainstream media was right and it did actually get into some government pedophilia.
You should watch The Passion. You should.
yeah.
Yeah, I watched it recently for the first time. I'd never seen it, and it's good. It is. It's not. I don't actually see it as overtly religious. It's very political.
Is it just Caviezel screaming in agony for like 2 hours?
Not really.
Okay, good.
I think that's exaggerated. I mean, it's merciless and graphic.
I like the
graphic,
politics. Jesus
But-
Christ
but it's-
Superstar, the musical, also good politics.
It's a lot. It's a lot of politics. It's a lot of like I remember strongly the scene with Pontius, and he's talking to the crowd, and he's like all of these things, very political. I thought it was very
Does it
interesting.
show Judas from like a somewhat sympathetic light? Like in Jesus Christ Superstar, they kind of show the stories from Judas's
I don't know.
perspective, and he's watching
That's
his friends
that's-
slowly lose it. And
it's an
Jesus,
opinion.
he's like, Jesus, when we started, it was about the message. Now it's about your name. They're screaming your name. They don't even care what you're saying anymore. This has got to stop. And Jesus is like, ah! He's losing his mind. It's an awesome musical.
They show throwing the silver to Judas, and it like spills on the ground. Yeah.
Wild.
And then he like throws it back later, and he's like, I don't know, you should watch it. It's interesting. All right, we'll grab some more super chats over here. Let's see. Eric Miller says, Tim, about yellow trucking, it is rumored that Amazon and Home Depot were going to buy them because they have accounts with them and it's cheaper now. Interesting. Robert Fox says, I don't normally get to watch this live, but let me cook. I want a Roberto Jr. shirt that says, flock around and find out. Keep doing the great work. Cluck around and find out.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
Cluck around and find out. I get flock around and find out. I don't know. Maybe that one's better. We're going to be
With an umlaut on the O.
we're going to be doing Roberto Jr. Pro model skateboards
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, like I don't get a pro model skateboard. I mean, you know, I posted a skate video today on Instagram.
I like that because it showed a blooper. That was cool.
It was
It was still
I wouldn't call it
impressive.
a blooper.
I watched it. That
the blooper made it better because I saw like the struggle.
It's not so much a blooper, and it's that day I did a hang 10 hard flip, late flip, stuck it, and then fell, and that was the best it was going to be.
Oh, that was awesome.
And then I did a different trick, which is very, very similar, which is an endo flip.
Oh, I thought it was the same trick.
Two different tricks.
Okay.
Two different tricks, very, very similar.
Doing the
Similar,
Three Stooges
yeah.
running.
So the first trick is called a hang 10 hard flip, late flip. The board flips around, then right before catching it, when it's upright, I hit it again so it flips one more time.
On the grip tape.
On the grip tape. Yeah. The second trick is a hang 10 endo flip, where the board flips end over end, and then halfway around, I hit it on its underside while it's upside down, causing it to flip 1.5 times, and then I land on it. Different trick.
Looks similar.
Gotcha.
yeah,
I can
those
see
were
what you're saying.
nice.
But
Yeah, I'm not a skater, but it did look cool. I got to say that.
Roberto Jr. Pro model.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Do you know what sizes he's gonna have? Like A5.
Roberto Jr. is probably going to be 8.5. Yeah.
Sweet.
Because that's the board I'm going to ride, the Roberto Jr. model. Yeah, he's a superstar over here, man. You know, he's like, all the ladies love him.
Yeah, bullish on
All the
that.
chicken ladies.
Junior.
They love him. But Lil Luke's been going at it lately. Lil Luke, the rooster, his feet are all messed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just because he had bad. I think it might have been malnourishment. Something happened when he was a baby, which is like earlier this year, and so his feet are kind of messed up. But it's okay because apparently he's had no trouble, you know, getting it out with the ladies.
Well, that's good. Are you going to have a single?
Well, that's good.
a single bowl to get the ladies.
Typically, we just do have the we for a while it was Roberto and Roberto Jr. And then Roberto, you know, he had to be he retired.
Yeah.
He was actually imprisoned for sexual assault. Yeah, he was hurting one of the hens pretty bad. And now Roberto,
you guys put him in prison.
It was culture
he
shock.
had to
yeah.
get put in a separate little pen because he was hurting the hens.
Oh wow.
And then Roberto, now he's over at the Cocktown over at Fredamistan. But Roberto Jr. now his spurs are really big and he's starting to hurt the ladies pretty bad. So
He's taken after his father.
well, it just happens when the roosters get older, and a lot of people are like, cut the spurs, and I'm like, but that's mean. Like it hurts them, and we don't want to do that. But maybe we just got Roberto Jr. is going to have to go to finer pastures. I think what we're going to do though, and this is a big announcement, we're going to auction off a bunch of the chickens. They have a chicken auction periodically out here. And so we've got too many and they keep making more of themselves. So we have to do something about that. So we're probably going to take, you know, a good portion, maybe half of the current batch and then auction them. So I think the people locally out here will be really excited. And then we'll get like little placards with their names and we'll like sign it like official
nice.
Cast Castle Chicken City chickens. But then we'll keep the original chickens. Those are our friends. You know, we like them. Like Margaret.
Yeah,
and
she's
Roberto
nice.
Jr. Margaret's very ravenous. Let's grab some more super chats from our friends here. Tus Nolorum says, you are all talking about Russian prisons, but in America, we weren't talking about Russian prisons. We're talking about Ukrainian. But in American prisons, people get raped to the point it's a joke in most media and pop culture. Think about it. The worst crime in existence, even murder is more merciful, happens in American prisons as standard fare if you cross a warden by refusing to be literal slave labor. Yes, the U.S. prison system is horrifying and completely broken. I agree. But we were talking about Russian prisons.
Yeah,
I don't think we said anything about Russia.
No, we're talking about Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine.
Brittany Griner came up at one point. But we didn't. Go
Oh,
into that.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't mention anything about the prisons.
No, or endorse American prisons either. So yeah.
As Doe is to Deer says, there is no faster way to accelerate the divide in the country than to pardon the leader of one side after they commit high crimes. I agree.
Yeah, you'd have to do both at the same time.
Nope.
Wait, sorry. Can you say that again? This was the.
No faster way to divide a country than by pardoning one leader, like a leader from one side of the political aisle.
I really,
And then prosecuting someone on the other side.
Yeah, or not. Assumedly, I guess.
I really strongly disagree with you about like pardoning people and stuff like that. I really think.
Well,
that
what's your
bad.
motivation for it? Because like on the whole blackmail thing to end the Ukraine war, I think it's a no-brainer. Pardon them, but like, I don't know.
I completely disagree. I don't think so. That makes no sense.
If it had a chance of ending the war in Ukraine, I would do a lot of things, but I would certainly pardon Joe Biden.
Yeah, my goal
that makes
is
a lot of sense.
world peace.
But that's like a, if it would do thing, we do it.
Yeah.
Sure, but like the reality is, it would not.
No, it might
And
because he might have blackmail on him, and that might be why we're still
If you
in this
have
war.
pardon power in this position, you criminally prosecute. Like there's no circumstance in which you'd pardon Joe Biden for any reason.
What do you mean? That the reason is like if there's
you can forgive him and say, "Don't worry, Joe Biden. As president, we the American people will not hold it against you if it turns out you did bad things."
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
If
That's
you
what-
are
that's what I
if you
mean.
are the president and you have federal pardoning power, you go to your DOJ and say, "Lock him up. I want an indictment tomorrow morning."
Right. So it's not technically pardoning. It's basically just like we're not going to prosecute him.
Well, I'm looking for.
But no, he has the prosecution power. Like,
Well, right.
his appointees.
Ian's scenario was like if you're president or like if you magically have the pardon power, would you use it to
kind of like what,
and this is my
what
point.
Ford
like,
did with Nixon.
let's talk about how we deal with this in reality, because this scenario is impossible, completely impossible.
right.
You have to win. We need ballot harvesting, ballot chasing. We need massive voter operations. Trump goes in, appoints an AG who immediately goes after Joe Biden, and we get a perp walk. There you go. Problem solved.
Like,
But like that's also fantasy. Like if you think that's going to happen, like you're not living in reality.
that's
either.
actually possible.
No, I see. It's like a physical. It's a theoretical possibility. I just think like the fact that not only Trump gets in the White House, but that he like is able to. These
are just opinion statements, right? I'm saying it is a fact-based reality that Trump is running for office.
Right.
There's going to be an election. If he wins, he can then appoint an AG who does this thing. There is no basis in reality where someone magically has pardon power, but they're not in the government.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, you yourself said that, like, you think the 2024 elections are going to happen, but
Pure
they're basically
chaos.
going to be a sham. And
I didn't say that.
Oh, no,
I said no one's going to accept the results.
oh, I see. Okay, so
Right.
you think there's a real chance Trump could win?
Yes.
well, to answer your question about. Oh, you have more.
Well, like
Trump beat Hillary Clinton.
right, but then like think about 2020 when there was the whole intel community coming together and being like and censoring the Hunter Biden story. You know,
And they created the Russia story during the election as well against Donald Trump.
right,
And Trump still beat Hillary Clinton.
yeah, and I mean
Because
and-
Hillary didn't go to, what was it? She like skipped Michigan or Wisconsin?
I think it was actually Pennsylvania, but I'm not positive. It was somewhere in the Rust Belt.
I guess so. You don't fully buy into the fact that like they will do whatever is possible to not let him get him in office. A vengeful second term Trump. You don't think that the deep state will?
I didn't say that.
But what do you think is more likely? Do you think like the deep state it will succeed in preventing him from getting elected, or do you think like what do you think the percentage is that Trump could win?
I think the bureaucratic state, the deep state, the permanent government will do everything in their power to try and stop Trump, and there's a possibility Trump wins.
Do you want put a percentage on it that Trump wins?
No idea. No idea. Trump won in 2016. He lost in 2020. So that means it's 50-50.
50-50. Okay.
I give it a 7% chance. There'd be some,
I like that. Yeah.
anyone that says I'm gonna when you hire me to be your boss, I'm gonna fire you. They're not gonna hire you to be their boss. The reason I'm going for pardons and why I keep talking about pardons is because I don't give a fuck about Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, these old people that have been shredding my republic for the last 20, 30 years, these families. I'm tired of it all. I want to wash them away. I want to pardon everyone, let them retire so we can create a new government, a
And then,
functional,
yeah,
from their
literal government.
retirement, they buy houses next to the White House, start putting tons of money into their appointees, use their exorbitant assets and their hundreds of millions of dollars earned from their influence to then inject people into your new constitutional republic.
That'll never stop though.
Yeah,
whether
it
they're in
will.
jail
It's
or
called
not.
putting them in jail.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop the behavior. And it also pisses people off when their relatives go to jail. So you just got to be careful with the,
I am
the whole prosecution.
I have very little concern for corrupt American dynasty families
Yeah.
who have been selling us out when there's 320 some odd million people who would smile if these people were locked up for the crimes they commit.
I'm not convinced that
I'm talking about the babies too, because a lot of those hundreds of millions of babies in there. Babies smile too.
I don't think it's a good idea to worry about the reactions of family members as when it comes to whether or not we should prosecute people for violating.
No,
or political
We got to go to the
partners,
members
you know,
only.
Yeah.
So
buddies in
we're
the CIA,
going
all
way
that
over.
crap.
We got to go to the members only show. So ladies and gentlemen, head over to timcast.com, become a member because that show's coming up in a few minutes. You don't want to miss it. It'll be on the front page of timcast.com. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally on X and on Instagram at Timcast. I just posted a little skate clip over on Instagram and X. Liam, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter, X at Cosgrove _IV, and that's really about the only place.
I am Phil Labonte. I am Phil That Remains on Twitter. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can follow us on Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, the old YouTube.
I'm Ian Crossland. You guys follow me on X at x.com/Ian Crossland. I don't know, you guys ever play XCOM? Speaking of video games earlier.
Yeah.
One of the best video games ever made.
Is that one of the? Isn't it like a freemium game?
XCOM UFO
That's
Defense.
like a freemium alien game.
Probably at this point it is. It was like came out by Microprose in 1992.
I would be shocked
alien
if that's
slay.
the best game ever. But
It was really good, dude. And they
Okay.
made sequels.
I can't say
XCOM.
I've never played it.
I have a feeling Elon's a fan. He's got X.com. Nice job, Elon. Nice work bringing it to the forefront, brother. So come on over to timcast.com. We're going to do a little hot after show action. I'm going to convince you why you should pardon Hillary Clinton. You're going to be into it. You're going to love it.
I disagree. I don't think you should pardon Hillary Clinton, of all people. My name is Serge.com. I'm really proud of you gaining all this weight, getting shredded, bro, for real. Pleasure meeting you, Liam. And yeah, let's just do the after show. Let's go for it.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.